did a great presentation for council the other night on the walls. Much
Yeah.
better than what I did for planning commission. Not did mine. We just don't want these walls. And you had a nice explanation of it also.
Non-technical. They're just ugly.
I
right?
should just be there to answer questions and I'll let you do the presentations.
Yeah, so we'll just do it in a different color. I'll just get up and say, we found the four changes, and here they are.
The one that comes to mind is we talked about a variance process below, but there is no variance process below.
And I thought I fixed that because
Maybe so.
The attorney said that.
I had my comments.
Okay, before, yeah, we
from
fixed that.
planning commission. Okay,
We
good.
did fix that because he.
You
thought
probably
that-
picked up everything that I was reading.
I mean.
Then we put the food in front of them.
Just wanna make sure, for quarter of 8.
Okay, yeah. We're good. We'll get him out.
Thank you. Huh.
First, get some direction. It's very easy. That's a very easy.
Oh, okay, perfect. That's what I like to hear.
I'm ready to hear it. You're ready to hear it.
I mean, you know.
You and I are, throw me a percentage. You and I
Are all of these
Throw
changes,
me a percentage. I think staff just wants to.
that's your.
Yeah, that's not.
The ordinance, if we
yeah,
wanna get
just
there?
Trimming it down.
Okay.
Yeah, anything. 'Cause
And then this
everything
is-
was black, and then that's Fulton County.
Fulton counties. And then,
Yeah. They just like, which one?
Analysis, I think. So.
yeah, okay.
So where did you say Kay was? She could hear traffic.
India.
Yeah, what
India.
was that? Yeah, what, I was thinking question, but I was thinking question, was that?
Bergadad.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know.
It's like the technology center of India.
I thought maybe.
I could talking to her on the phone last night. She's on like 20-something floor and you could hear traffic in the background. So it's crazy. There's no
There's no
traffic
control.
rules,
Right, right.
nothing. It's just a free for all.
I thought maybe a printer.
A lot of people get killed either on the public transportation and in traffic. I mean, that's
She's not allowed to leave her
hotel.
hotel or compound without
Somebody.
whoever they have. They're the monitors.
No wonder they're having trouble with that.
Oh yeah, plus with all the monetary stuff, right?
Yeah, you know, with that, you have to live under those conditions.
Oh, she said it's crazy. The prices for housing there, and people just living in cardboard boxes and under tarps and things. And water is such a commodity. They can only drink bottled water, but they only come in like little tiny bottles. They don't come in the regular bottle, water bottle size. I'm glad that was on her bucket list and not mine. So. She's
Oh, I think northern India is better. That's
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you know, I think you're right. I think so. More than four.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
She said the air is so bad. You can't see a mile out of the window because it's small.
Yeah, smog.
Yeah. Also, feel right at home when she comes back here.
Yeah, that's right. A lot
I'm
of
sure
fires
it's pretty clean compared to that, even with the fires.
and motorcycles. They drive motorcycles, but they put like
All
3 or
these
4 people
on it,
on a
right?
motorcycle.
And cargo, and yeah, that's how they're in China too.
Weave all over the place.
I know Mike's company, they have a lot of their people in India, but they actually are their employees, so they're not like, just, but a lot of the programmers go over there for a couple of weeks or whatever at a time, and he hasn't had to go yet, so.
Where would they go? Would they go to the same place?
Yeah, I'd have to ask, I don't know where they go, I'd have to ask.
Deerbond or something like that?
Yeah, I'll have to ask where they go. And a lot of the people that came from there, they all, like his office is in Dunwoody, across from Dunwoody Baptist, and there's an apartment complex right next to the office building. So they all live in the apartment complex and just like walk over and work.
Yeah.
So,
Wow, which works fine.
yeah, that's great. You don't need a car, or, you're right there. So. But the IT people over there, they work like 18-hour days, and it's like, even though the time difference, but it's just, they're like slaves. I mean, compared to here.
Oh, that's almost 12-hour time difference.
Yeah.
I was surprised because I was trying to go to sleep last night.
And then she calls
It's like
you.
10:30 at night, and she calls me at 9:30 in the morning her time. But nobody goes into the office till like 11 because they try and work some overlap time with U.S. time, I
Right,
guess.
and that's what the people do. I think it's 7. Yep. You ready, Peyton? It's 7. Oh, I didn't realize he. Okay, we'll let him come by.
Ready?
I had a late call in my boss. I was like, dude, I need to go. I'm like, you're on my time now.
Ready? Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I will call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order. This is a regular meeting of the City of Milton Planning Commission. I am Peyton Jamison, Chairman. This is a 7-member commission appointed by the City of Milton Mayor and City Council, created for the purpose of holding public hearings and making recommendations on rezoning, use permits, concurrent variance applications, comprehensive land use plan and plan map, and other related plans and amendments to the zoning ordinance. I'll introduce our other board members. To my left is Fred Edwards, Sumit Shah, Paul Moore, and to my right is Mark Bittner and Wilson Borden. The petitions will be heard in the sequence listed on the posted agenda. I would like to acquaint you with some of the rules and procedures conducting this meeting. The applicant and all those speaking in support of an application will be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present the petition. The applicant may choose to save some of the time for rebuttal following the presentation by the opposition. The opposition will be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present its position. If time remains, the opposition will be allowed to rebut. Since the burden of proof is upon the applicant will be allowed to make closing remarks, provided time remains with the allotted time. The staff of the Community Development Department will be keeping track of time and will inform you periodically of the remaining time for your presentation. Each speaker must fill out a speaker card before speaking and leave it with a staff member of the Community Development Department. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization, if applicable, before beginning the presentation. When an opponent of a rezoning action is made within 2 years immediately preceding the filing of the rezoning action being opposed, campaign contributions aggregating more than $250 or more to a local government official of the local government which will consider the application, it shall be the duty of the opponent to file a disclosure with the governing authority of the respective local government at least 5 days prior to the Planning Commission meeting. A violation of the relevant state statute constitutes a misdemeanor. Therefore, if you have contributed $250 or more to a council member and have not timely filed a disclosure prior to the Planning Commission meeting, the city attorney strongly suggests that you have someone else speak on your behalf. Each application has been properly filed with the Department of Community Development. Signs have been posted on each site. The matter has been advertised and notices have been mailed to property owners affected by this zoning as required by the Milton zoning ordinance. The Planning Commission's recommendation will be forwarded to the City of Milton Mayor and City Council for final disposition. The Mayor and City Council hearing will be held approximately 3.5 weeks from this hearing on the third Monday of each month at 6 p.m. in the council chambers. The Community Development Department has reviewed each application in conjunction with various agencies and departments, both internal and external to the city. Staff's recommendations, findings, and conclusions are here before us in written form, which has been made available to all petitioners and to the public. Demonstration of any sort within the chamber is prohibited, so please refrain from any applause, dialogue with the person speaking, or outbursts. Please turn off all cell phones or place them on silent. All remarks will be addressed by the Planning Commission. Please show the same respect to the person speaking that you will expect to receive yourself. In addition, the applicant shall not submit material to the Planning Commission during the meeting unless requested to do so by the Commission. All material that you wish to be reviewed by the Commission in consideration of your application should be submitted to the staff of the Community Development Department to be included in the normal distribution of packages to the Commission. Finally, to the applicant, if your petition is deferred in accordance with the Milton zoning ordinance, you are required to update or obtain a new sign for reposting. Failure to update or repost will result in further delay. There are no exceptions. At this time, I'd like to call for public comment. That's any comment that you have that is not on the posted agenda. So anything that's not on the current agenda. Robin, do we have any public comment?
No general comment, no.
Okay, I'll close public comment and go to the approval of the action minutes.
I'm sorry?
Approval of the action minutes.
I move we approve the October 26, 2016 planning meeting action minutes.
Second?
I just got a point, I think potentially a clarification maybe on number one, because I believe I may have abstained since I wasn't here.
Actually, I asked you to go ahead and vote.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and then you went ahead and
You
voted.
started.
Just voted, okay.
Yeah, you did.
Okay,
Thank you. Yeah.
good memory.
We all remember.
All right.
Did you get a second? Second. Okay, got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, and then one housekeeping item, we need to move RZ 16-05 for the first agenda. So we need to swap RZ 16-05 and RZ 16-09, if you are okay with that. And if so, if someone can make a motion, that'd be great.
We're putting steep slopes in front of
Correct.
form-based
Deerfield.
code.
Mhm.
Okay, I move we move RZ 16-05 to the first item on the agenda, and so number 2 becomes number 1, and number 1 becomes number 2.
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, Robin?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was looking down when you guys were doing the minutes. Who seconded it?
I did.
Mark.
Oh,
Okay,
Mark
thank-
seconded the minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Minutes.
Okay, the first item then will be consideration RZ 1605, consideration to create steep slope standards in Chapter 64, Article 17, Division 3, Site Improvement Standards.
I'll start. Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, staff is looking for direction from you tonight in terms of which direction you'd like us to proceed. We've given you several different formats of a steep slope ordinance from other communities for your review. And we've also talked about different percentages for the steep slope. And before we proceed with finalizing a new ordinance for you, we'd like to get some direction in terms of format as well as percentage of steep slope that you would like this ordinance to pertain to. And Carter is here to answer technical questions, and as we are as well.
I'll just throw out that in your package you should see kind of a trimmed down ordinance of the version that we discussed last time, the model ordinance, as well as Fulton County's ordinance, just to give you an idea about what the county had adopted. We then took, I think there's probably 10 different jurisdictions and gave you a summary of how they dealt with steep slopes from a variety of locations throughout the state, whether they be local municipalities or counties. Just so you can see how they do it. You'll see some of those do follow the model ordinance, and some are exactly, if not very similar to Fulton County's ordinance. I didn't provide you with the entire ordinance. All we basically gave you was what they considered to be a steep slope and then what they would permit on that steep slope, which to me is really kind of the meat of the ordinance. But recognize that there is generally a full ordinance built around those criteria, but those are really kind of the heart of their criteria. Some of those criteria you'll also see only apply to specific specific districts within those local jurisdictions. For instance, DeKalb County, they have a very restrictive 15%, but it only applies to the Arabia Mountain National Resource Protection Area. So my guess is there's something special about that particular location.
I mean, I was kind of reading all three. I personally like the Fulton County one as far as reading wise. What did y'all mean?
Can I ask a question before we go
Sure.
there?
Oh, yeah,
Just
sure.
the general principle question. Carter, when on several of them, but not all, included a comment or a statement that declared that it was development on areas greater than 5,000 square feet. help me understand why that seems to be a benchmark and why that comes into play.
It's a typical threshold for our grading permits. So a lot of our grading permits, once you reach that 5,000 square foot threshold, it triggers a permit.
Right. It's a threshold.
So it's just, because it's for residential development, commercial
any- yeah,
development,
any-
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
that, okay.
Right.
That makes more sense to me. It just seemed like an arbitrary number.
It's
that,
not.
And yet it
Yeah.
was, it was.
It's a pretty common threshold for the permit.
So if I got,
I'm sorry. Do we have public comment first on that?
We,
question.
right, we don't have any right now on it.
Okay.
If
I'm
anybody
sorry.
wants
Yeah, no
public
good.
comment, you can bring it up while they're talking, I guess.
Okay.
thanks, Fred.
Sorry.
So if I've got a 4-acre parcel and I've got whatever the percentage slope is that we end up declaring as the right grade, and I want to develop 3,500 square feet, I don't need, steep slope does not into consideration regardless of the grade of the slope. If it's a less than a 5,000 square foot development area.
It can be, if that's the way the ordinance was written. Yes, that's right.
Okay, so there are, and that's how, in my interpretation, some of these are written, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
So it would be, you'd be doing basically an unpermitted activity, which is, at some point, you have to set some threshold by which the municipality has the ability and manpower to be able to enforce.
Yeah.
And that's just a pretty common number.
So Carter, to clarify, if you were building something, though, you'd have to have a building permit,
Good point.
correct? So it would be regulated.
Right, it could, yeah, that's right, it could.
If it was more than
But if I was just going to do a
5,000.
pasture, or I wanted to take I wanted to take that slope out because, for whatever reason, wasn't going to put a structure on it, but change the topography, then you wouldn't need a permit.
Right, and you can get a building permit typically for that type of construction without a grading permit. So that, it is possible that a building permit is issued on some of these.
No.
And I'm just trying to get a grip on the scale of it, because there's some stuff we don't want to be engaged in. And the things that we're probably trying to protect in the big picture are not going to be at that scale. But I guess the 5,000 does make sense to me that way now. Thank you for clarifying. Okay.
I mean, to throw it out there, I thought 33 sounded, 35 or 33 sounded reasonable.
33 was like that. It's like a 1 to 3 slope. I think
Yeah.
isn't that what you do the roads at? Isn't there something to do with the grading of the roads? The maximum grade of the roads is 33 or no?
No, typically, we're going to be in the 8 to 10%. You can get up to 12 to 14% in residential situations. 33%, I don't think I have those pictures. I did have those pictures last time to try and give you an idea about what those types of slopes looked like. I could look on the computer and see if they were still on there, but
The 33 was kind of where I was.
I thought this was
Yeah, it's 33 to 35.
I'll throw this out for the sake of argument, is everywhere is 33. And there's a lot of everywhere that we don't want to be like. So I would propose that we consider something more restrictive with 25 that does make us more unique in the fact that we are rural today. Everywhere else that we're asked to consider in here is not. And, that's why in Fulton County is, references mining. That's why their ordinance reads steep slopes protection and grading ordinance, because they're very different than we are, for the most of Fulton County.
My thought was, I went in my basement, and our house is 30x feet deep. And the basement's 10 feet roughly, top to bottom. And I figured most of the houses in our area, that was common. So if you did a 20-foot, if you did 25%, technically, I don't think my house would qualify. So I don't know if that's wrong or not, but I was trying to think of what would be reasonable, and when I looked at our house, that from rise to fall where our house was, I know that's not the lot, because the way the thing goes is from front to back, but I just figured where the building envelope was, 33% seemed to be about what a basement would be. 10 feet of fall over 30. So that's I don't know that that's very scientific. It's just I just wanted to kind of guinea pig it and see what it looked like.
How about this chart, for example, Paul? I mean, as far as a lot of these municipalities have these charts to where if you have So I don't know if you just want to do, it's just going to be anything above this amount, it's just not going to happen. Or do you have like a sliding scale?
Yeah.
I don't know,
So I'm inclined, and I thought long and hard about the chart. And my first argument I had with myself was, it implies that some of this stuff is okay. And I want to imply that steep slope protection in Milton is important. So most of the development on a steep slope area is not going to be okay for me. I want to preserve that. And even though it's a sliding scale where you get up to 80% protection and 20% development area, or 20% preservation area, or reverse, 80% protection area, 20% development, it implies that this stuff is going to be okay. And I'd rather that stuff come before the city for consideration, because it may be something that meets all those parameters, but it's right smack in the middle of an area that has no development whatsoever. All of a sudden, you're implying that that's okay because it's on the chart. Where if you draw the line saying anything above whatever the number is, I'm suggesting on the scale of 25, it all has to then be considered in the mix. Just like we're being asked to consider some things tonight, that there's some things that are just like everything else on Highway 9, and yet we're being asked to consider something that's unique to that. If it didn't come before us and it was just like everything else, we wouldn't have the benefit of having public comment on it. We wouldn't have the chance for the community to engage us or the mayor and council on it. So I'm more for a lower threshold and as an absolute, and then anything above that.
Like at a board of zoning appeals or whatever, is that?
Yeah, or whatever the
Or council.
appropriate,
I think I saw that.
There,
on
there's
one
a,
of
yeah,
those.
in one of the formats, there was something that basically said if it's above this, it has to get a variance or approval, and you had to show substantial economic loss or hardship or whatever. Like
Right.
you have it, you can't build on it, and then you apply for a variance, which I would be fine with picking a number and saying that if it's not that, you get a variance, and I think as long as the number's reasonable,
and I think
if you have a hardship, if you can't develop on it, I don't think you want to block somebody out.
Right, we're creating.
that's
a
why,
hardship.
I read through them all, and it was terrific that we finally, the last one that staff presented to us was Snellville. And I was surprised that it was Snellville, but it's the simplest, and, because I used to live near there at one point, and it's, far more developed than we are. But that was also a long time ago, and there's been more development since then. But it's simple, it's not arbitrary, because it gives some absolutes here, and it takes out all the rest of the ridiculous overstatement of regulation and gets to a really simple ordinance that says you just can't do it, it's over 25% unless you've got a hardship. And then if you've got a hardship, you come before the city and ask for consideration. We sat for how many hours? Close to two hours a couple weeks ago.
Can I make a comment about that? Because some of these ordinances speak to only their conservation. I mean, I'm
Right.
just going to make that an example, that's within a conservation subdivision scenario.
I understand
So
that.
just FYI
I know it's just a
apples
snippet.
to oranges, yeah.
But there doesn't have to be a whole lot of language around that, is kind of where I'm going with
Okay.
this.
Right.
Because the more language you put into it, like we discovered when we sat in kind of a preparatory meeting for this, we discovered that Carter and I approached, 9 out of 10 things with careful assessment of it, but with absolutely different conclusions when we then had a very healthy discussion about it. And neither of us was right or wrong. But there was lots of room for interpretation because it was all new to us. So I take that as an example of somebody who's coming to the city and wanting to develop a parcel, and they're gonna read it, and there could be 9 ways from Sunday to read it and have room for interpretation. Where if you go more crystal clear with less room for error, I think we may be serving ourselves far better. Just food for thought, and obviously for discussion.
How much land are we actually talking about? Do we know, like, how many acreage would be?
We had the map, in the
Ballpark.
previous, I have no idea how many acres that would include. I mean, we could,
It's quite a bit.
There was a chart.
There's quite a bit.
You had
Yeah,
a
that.
little chart last time, right? Or not a chart,
it
but
was,
a map.
it was
Had a
the map
red-
It's
that
like an
was
aerial
red
map of,
for the more than 25%, I believe. I
I think it was in the 30,
The 30, maybe.
33%.
Let me, I have it, and my old,
You know, it's a lot of our western boundary, it's a lot of our northern boundary. There's some internal Milton areas, but mostly it's on our borders.
So there's a subdivision being built behind me. Here's the road, here's the house. I mean, that driveway's like this, down. So how's that affected here? Is that affected at all?
What's the subdivision?
This is the North Park off of, I mean, those houses are 20, 30 feet down from the road. I mean, that's 40, that's 40,
Yeah.
50, I mean, that's a substantial
If it's
slope
the,
down.
if it's just, if the lots are flat, once the road gets down to them, then it's not affecting the house development.
So-
But if they're trying to hang a house off the road, and it's halfway down the slope,
Okay, so
then
a
it
lot
does
of,
affect them.
so a lot of this land that we're talking about is hilly enough where you're gonna find a flat spot potentially to put a house, right? Or is it, you know what I mean, like this subdivision behind me, it's just, you know, one house is here and the next house is up here.
Do you know that subdivision, Carter, by any chance?
What's the name of it?
I think
oh, it's the,
North
I know
Field,
which one,
North.
it's right there at Mountain
Mountain
and
and
Freemanville.
Freemanville.
It's the
That's a hilly
Sharp
area.
resident, it's kind of
Oh,
long, I can't, it's
on the
north
south-
something, you're right.
southeast
Park,
corner?
Northfield, or,
The southeast
Corner?
corner, it kind of just touches Mountain and
Mhm.
then Freemanville, so.
I'm not very familiar with that. I know where you are, but I'm not familiar enough to answer any questions about it.
I'm just using that as an example of, just trying to understand, you got one house sitting
No.
up here and then 40, 50 feet below it, the next house is down here.
So in some respects, that's actually probably pretty good. If you can develop the houses on the lot with minimal disturbance and not bringing in a lot of fill to level all the homes up, that's probably a good development standard to go by.
Hopewell Plantation is a perfect example of that. When you go in off of Highway 9, you have a small slope drop off from the highway, but the next house is, I mean, it's major down. And right next to it, the house sets up probably 10, 15 feet above the road. So, you know, does that slope come, again, back to your
Yeah.
question,
Were those developed that way because we didn't have a steep slope ordinance, or were they developed that way because they found a flat area? I don't know.
That's kind of what I was
yeah,
asking.
that was, well, that was what I was trying to see is, you know, where does the slope part come in? You know, is it, you know, after that drop and then it's flat and that, well, there's no, if that doesn't come into play, then the slope doesn't affect it.
Yeah. You know, some of the texts that we read in preparation for this did, you know, roads are excluded from the requirements of the you know, the grade. So that would allow you potentially to get to a more challenging area, if you could, or maybe to a more developable area that's actually flatter, but you had to cut the road in to get there. So that would be okay.
Right.
It should be okay to get there.
So what's the number? What's the number?
Well, I want to be different than everywhere else that's developed more aggressively than we are.
Well, to me, the hard thing about being a little different is most of our stuff's 1 acre lots. And so when you're in somewhere else that's masqueraded, they're gonna be flatter. And so, to me, it seems more economically practical. If you've got a bigger building area, you ought to be allowed to build, there's gonna be steeper lots. You're gonna, yeah, maybe you find a bigger, flatter spot in that steeper area. But to me, it's hard to think that you're gonna be flatter, and we're not in a very flat part of the world here either. You know, we're not on the south side of Atlanta or in Snellville where it is flat. You got more topo here, you have bigger building envelopes. And so, to me, it seems like you could find a better spot to fit that house in an acre than you could on a quarter acre or whatever. Again, it's just food for thought. So for me, it seems like a little steeper. Like you know, it was suggested last time 40% was the number. I don't think it's 40%.
No.
But I mean, I could live all day long with 33 or 35. I wouldn't
I
have
agree.
a problem with either one.
Right.
So what do we do?
So, while we're getting to the number, let's just think of, so are we saying, if I get consensus, are y'all saying 33 is the number, but anything on top of 33, 0? Or do you even get a chance to go to Board of Zoning Appeals after that? Or are you just saying 33 is it?
I think, like reading Forsyth's, anything above 33 is highly discouraged and has to go above. I don't think we want to be definitive, protect ourselves, that we just suddenly made somebody's land. I think we
Totally
can protect
unusable,
ourselves.
yeah.
Make it that, okay, you can try, maybe there's a way, but probably not. I think it just protects us better.
Because Canton, I'm just looking at Canton, and they have a 30 to 34,
Right.
but you have to have a 2-acre minimum lot on a 30 to 34% slope. So I don't know if that gives you a little protection too. You got to do 33%, but it has to be a 2-acre minimum. I mean, there's a lot of ways that we can go with this.
So that gets back more towards the model ordinance that we looked at the last time. When you look at the graduated table of the percentage and the lot areas. And if you remember, that also had a minimum or maximum slope for the building area. I think it was 15%. I went back that you had to have a 15% slope for the building location itself.
Is the chart, does it protect, I guess I'm trying to find out, is the chart protecting the city? I mean, is that something that is that used more or not? I mean, what's the purpose, I guess, the whole goal of the chart? Is it more protect the city, maybe?
Well, the chart was intended, as the model ordinance was, to not necessarily prohibit development on these slopes, but to manage the development on those slopes. And so when you get to some of these steeper lots, you have a larger lot area, which then gives you more area that's actually protected. And the idea being that somewhere in that larger lot, you would have a building envelope of 15% or less for which you could actually disturb and build your home on. So I know it's a little bit convoluted, but the more that we had discussed that internally with that table and the lot sizes, it actually kind of grew on us from the standpoint that it may be getting us more towards the type of development that we would like to see, and that it's just not the standard 1-acre lot, but you could be in a subdivision that could have 1, 2, 3, 4-acre lots, depending on how the terrain was within that particular subdivision. And those areas with steeper slopes would have larger lots and therefore a larger percentage that must remain undisturbed. So it's just a different way of going about it. It doesn't maybe necessarily protect that particular slope, but it gives you a lot of green space on some of those areas that are a little bit steeper in the development.
Yeah, and that Carter makes a really good point. I had forgotten about the Canton chart in the mix of this.
That's
Most,
kind of what I was
most of them did not have an acreage requirement, and I mean I could certainly move on my 25% if we would consider a minimum lot size that would be charted like that.
So why don't we do
And I'm not
this?
so sure that's the right chart, but I think it's maybe directionally the right.
Are y'all okay with this, with the whole chart thing on percentages and lot sizes? Are y'all cool with that?
As long as it includes the lot size.
Because what I'm thinking is we can duke it out at the next meeting, but I want to give staff at least some guidance on where we're going, and we'll be able to knock out the percentages and the minimums at the next meeting. I was just curious to see, do y'all like the model ordinance chart? I mean, I actually like the way Fulton County's ordinance read. It was just a little simpler to read. But if we could kind of mix, but Paul probably should.
No, I hate it.
He hates it. So. I was just saying the way it just lays out is easy. So, are y'all okay with the chart? I mean, or would y'all rather have just a line in the sand type of deal?
I think the chart's the way.
Chart.
Yeah, I think chart's good too.
Okay, we can go back to the model ordinance, and Robin's done a lot of work on it so far to try and simplify it and take some of the extraneous language out
You
of
say
it.
model ordinance, you're talking about Fulton County as the model
No,
ordinance?
No, sir, the one that you and I had long discussions on.
The original.
Okay.
Yeah, with the chart.
That's
yeah.
where the chart comes from.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But that's still a 14-page document.
Oh, I know, that's what,
But I've already
Well, we could make an effort to go
massage it
back and
work
trim
on
that
it.
down to maybe a more manageable.
I think
So
you're,
you don't like Fulton County?
no, I think we need to find a blend of,
Right, and that's what we're
of Snellville
Right.
and
Snellville.
Canton.
I agree.
Snellville and Canton.
See, but
Yeah.
you didn't put their whole ordinance. That's
We didn't put.
Right.
they
Well,
just put the chart.
No, I understand that, but it's, there's, unless theirs is a
That was-
14-page
that has to do-
document.
Well, and that,
think-
like
Yeah.
I said, that has to do with, at least with the Snellville one, that has to do with the conservation ordinance, but it looks like Canton, that looks like it's
Yeah.
their regular one, so maybe we'll look at what
Well, that,
Canton.
Because if
that
we go back to the model ordinance, we're right back to what I was saying before,
Yeah.
where you've got all this room for interpretation, and I don't think we need to go there. It needs to be more
I
absolute.
would much rather have a nice, simpler with the chart. And
Absolutely.
There you go. See what-
Absolutely.
so what we were hoping to do tonight is either the way Snellville is going or the way Canton is going.
With the chart.
Yes.
All right, where's Snell?
I'd be fine if
okay,
it read,
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
you can't develop it if it's over X percent, and if development is gonna be allowed, it's only under these parameters, and then you got a chart. It's about a paragraph and a half with the chart.
So I guess what Carter's saying is like, do you think the city is more protected with the chart?
Yes.
Or, okay, that's kind of where I'm kind of going.
Yes, with the lot sizes.
Okay, yes.
And as long as, and the lot sizes can be adjusted to be more Milton-esque, where, you know, maybe these are close with 1.5 to 3, you know, maybe it's 2
Yeah.
to 4, I don't know. We can
Okay,
negotiate
good.
that part too, but, what I don't wanna get back into is when you've got, and I'm forgetting the right language, when you've got the, what's it called, Carter, when you cut into the, and you use the fill?
Cut and fill?
Cut and fill, yeah, well, there it is, yeah, cut and fill slopes, you know, and all of a sudden, you're talking about, what does that look like, and where is it where is it permissible, and then you've got
Okay.
about lot sizes, and all, that's far more complicated than we need to have.
Absolutely.
Okay, we
That's
can,
not who we
Totally
yeah.
agree.
Especially if our underlying objective to this, guys, is to try to preserve a look and feel of Milton. Well, part of that look and feel for Milton is protecting our steep slopes. They've never been developed before, because it's been viewed as, to the development community, as throwaway land. They're not gonna pay
Right.
for it. So let's not give them a way to make it more attractive. They've avoided it for a reason, because it's a challenge to build on, and, you know, it's got higher costs, and it's, begins to change the look and feel of the community. So let's not go there if we don't have to.
Well, here's what we could do. We could take a lot of this language out. We could make it a very simple ordinance, take a lot of the language that's in the model ordinance out into a guidance document. And so for those who are working with this, the ordinance will be there to provide the strict requirements of the law, and the guidance document, which a lot of this information is, will be there to help them understand how we want to implement it. For those who are in the business, we have done that in the past too. That makes the ordinance very simple, and we can make the guidance document as detailed as we feel like we need to help people through the process.
Because I guess, because I think.
Until we see that.
Well,
it's
Carter,
a great
you know,
idea.
actually, Carter brings up a very good point also, because you're not gonna be here forever. Y'all aren't gonna be here forever. We know we're not gonna be here forever. So there does
Paul,
need to
I
be.
already have been.
There needs to be something along, so people understand what exactly our intent is here. So, you know, bring up,
So when I'm looking at the city of Canton's, it is directly to steep slope, so you're talking about maybe, I mean, that's pretty short and sweet and direct, and then a chart and whatever.
And that's where I'd like to see it
I
go,
think we're all.
I agree.
with the right numbers.
Yes.
And
Right.
if
No.
33 is the right number, we negotiate that next time.
Correct.
But I encourage you guys to think about 25 to 33.
I'm good.
Okay.
Y'all good with that?
Yeah.
I am.
Great.
Yes, thank you very much.
So no need to make.
I guess, do we need to make a motion to
Yeah, to
defer? Okay, to December,
28th,
is that
December 28th?
no?
that's the next.
No, it's
I thought it
16.
was
This
the
is
14th
14.
or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, when we were meeting last, no, we deferred everything to the,
December 14th.
yeah, December
or something.
14th.
But that's not when the official meeting is.
That's what, when we deferred it
I
last
know,
last
but
meeting?
that was a special call, because I've advertised our next set of things for, it's in,
Well, remember you said the 28th and we said no, and we went back?
well, everything's advertised for the next set for the 28th.
Oh, my
Oh,
God.
people
Wait,
are
is there
gonna love
anything on
that.
the 14th?
I got it all for the 14th.
Is there anything
I
on the
had
14th?
14th.
Do we have anything for the
No,
14th?
because everything, all of
Everything's
my new
moved to
items
28th.
are advertised for the 28th. A new use permit, everything's advertised for the 28th.
So why did we defer everything?
I swear we
to the
deferred it.
14th?
I know, I don't disagree with
Okay,
you.
okay.
I don't disagree with you that you guys deferred it to
Oh,
the
you're talking
full-
about the use permit.
Yeah, I'm saying the next scheduled meeting is December 28th. I don't disagree with you that you guys asked to defer the item for the Highway 9 stuff to the 14th. I don't disagree with that. But what I'm saying is the official meeting in December for the Planning Commission is December 28th, and that's what I have.
So are we gonna be on the 14th and the 28th?
You don't have to. That's
Oh,
what I'm
okay.
trying to say, is
Okay.
that you can defer this to the 28th.
Ah,
And punt on the 14th.
Yeah.
Not that you
all right.
need
I mean, if you've,
It's
if
already
if it's
advertised.
advertised, it is what it is. That's why they pay us the big bucks if we show up.
People aren't gonna show up, yeah.
Big crowd.
Okay.
So I'm just, so the 28th, what we have is the use permit, right? So
Right,
we are
and
gonna
some
have-
other text amendment, like
Okay.
2 or 3
All right.
text amendments.
Yeah, motion?
Yeah, it's
Really,
moved to the
really,
14th.
We don't wanna make.
I don't want to the 14th.
We don't wanna make
the
it
28th.
Go ahead, yeah.
I'm only coming once. You know what I mean?
What do you choose
I
to,
don't know.
what do you choose to do?
Hey, if Paul's not here,
Yeah, you might be a really fast meeting.
he's gonna call in.
Well, I guess we have
I'll
to
make
do
a
it.
motion
I
to
know.
defer RZ 16-05 to the December 28th Planning Commission meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, got a motion by Mark, second by Paul.
Right.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay. Oh, no, that's what I got.
I'm sorry, Kathy was talking to me.
That was my fault, I'm sorry.
Who did the first and second?
Mark and Paul. Mark first, second Paul.
Mark made the motion, I
Okay,
second.
Special call meeting.
Okay, Carter.
Have a good night.
Yeah.
Have a good
Has to be a
Thanksgiving,
special call
Carter.
meeting because we're moving our meeting.
All right, thanks, Carter. See ya.
Okay, the next item is RZ 1609, consideration to amend the Deerfield Form-Based Code in Chapter 64, Article 20. So, she does want to.
Okay, this was deferred from the last meeting. As you know, the purpose of this text amendment is to consider eliminating all residential uses except when located in a vertically mixed-use building for properties adjacent to Highway 9 and North Main Street. This text amendment was heard at your October 26th meeting, and after deliberation, it was decided to defer this item in order to allow staff time to send notices to all property owners with property adjacent to Highway 9 and North Main Street, and that has been done. Additionally, the Planning Commission requested staff provide a map indicating parcels along Highway 9 and North Main Street that are not developed and could be impacted by this text amendment. And lastly, you requested to see a copy of the report produced by Dr. Michael Elliott, who the city hired to mediate the 5-acre area between the residents and the landowners. So all that documentation should have been sent to you, and you should have in your packet.
All right.
Do we have some public hearing?
We do have some public comment. If you can go ahead.
Okay. Yep.
The first speaker is Debbie Stewart.
Pros and cons?
They're not saying one way or the other, so.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Hello.
My name is Debbie Stewart, and I live at 325 Acre Road. I've lived there for 33 years. And this is most of my neighbors here. There's at least 10 neighbors that are here tonight also. And we have been fighting for first we fought the landfill, then we got, so then after they stopped the landfill, we got Crooked Creek, so we were glad of that. And then two of our neighbors decided they wanted to go commercial. They wanted to sell their land commercial. One of the guys, Mr. Min Mandus, bought the land saying he was going to put a home there. Well, then 3 weeks later, he put the house, the land for sale 6 or 8 times the price he paid because he wanted to go for commercial. So our neighborhood and Kathy and Michelle and I don't know, they got a gentleman to come and decide that, okay, this is something we can all live with. You know, they made restrictions. We had all kind of restrictions. We had variances. We had it all figured out. And then we got the notice where Milton now wanted just commercial on Highway 9. Well, the people that bought the land, that own the land, of course, they want the highest price they can get. But we, as most of us in our neighborhood, would really prefer if they could still put residential there. We would prefer, because a lot of us have been out there. I've been there 33 years. Maryland's 40, 35, 40. And we would much rather have, a couple of, or 4 houses or whatever, because I know things are constantly changing. Years ago, you couldn't put a house unless you had an acre of land. Well, that changed. And then, now you can put 10 houses, it seems like, on an acre. And it's just getting ridiculous. Milton has changed so drastically, and Alpharetta, since we've lived out here. And I know we can't change other people's property, but we're property owners, and I do believe in property owners being able to sell their land for, things they want. But we spent years working on this. Kathy can tell you, we spent hours and hours and hours working on what our neighborhood and what Milton and what the 3 landowners that wanted to do with this property. And now you're wanting to throw it back in the mix with everything, and we want it to stay, if at all possible. The agreement that we made in the paper about a month ago, it said that the agreement down Highway 9 would be, that you did want. I can understand needing more money. Milton's such a poor place anyway. I know they need more money. But I can understand, wanting to have codes. But we are residential. We are a neighborhood. Crooked Creek is also represented here. Lake Laurel is here. And they come right up to Highway 9. We come right up to Highway 9. Crooked Creek comes right up to 9. Kathy backs up to the land that would be all of a sudden commercial and not residential. We really don't like that they would put 5 houses on an acre, but if that's what has to be, we've got the codes and we've got the agreement set in the agreement that we made with the 5-acre. I don't know. My husband usually does the talking, and he's on a golf trip, so so here he has me up here doing it. But I just know that I'm representing most of our neighborhood, saying that we would really appreciate if y'all could leave it just like we had it, just like we worked, just like y'all paid lots and lots of money to figure it out and to make us happy. We in the end. We of course would have liked to change some things, but we can live with what we had, and we would just like to stay as what we have in our neighborhood now. And it would be nice if it was residential, because when you want to sell, like one of my neighbors, Marilyn, she's 80 years old, and she said she might not be living there, but maybe 2 or 3 more years. She's been there 40 years, and she said that in, maybe 5 years she might be moving to the assisted living up the street. But she would like to know that when you did turn off Highway 9 into our street, that it was residential. It just makes more for a homey feel if it is left residential. And like I said, I don't know what those people that are doing with what they want to do with the land, but we would definitely like to have the option. If they would do residential, we sure would appreciate that. And I appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Laura Bentley.
Hey there. Laura Bentley, 2500 Bethany Church Road. Thank you very much for being here and being part of all these important decisions. I certainly support low-density residential at the 5-acre subdivision. That is one of the most beautiful areas on Highway 9. If you've not driven in there, you should. It's wonderful. It's the thing. It's the neighborhood that makes those type of neighborhoods make unique Milton unique. I do, separate from the 5-acre neighborhood, though, I do support the text amendment to eliminate residential uses adjacent to Highway 9. As I counted up, and the information in the packet was very helpful, I think I counted up to 59 acres that we're talking about on Highway 9. So we don't have many commercial areas to go to for our commercial development. We have 27 acres, 27.1 acres at the crossroads, Birmingham Crossroads, and I don't know what the amount is in Crabapple. 59 acres along Highway 9 that we desperately need. I don't know what the tax revenue differences are between residential and commercial, but just as far as planning and development and having commercial areas for all the folks that want to move here, and we know that's coming, we do need some commercial areas. So thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Hannah Stewart.
Hi, I've lived at 5 Acre Road my whole life. It's been hard going in and out as a...
For the record, your name and your address.
Yes. Hannah Stewart, 320 5 Acre Road. I have lived there my whole life. I have gone to school. I waited at the bus stop my whole life at the front of the neighborhood. And my house backs up to the property that is being debated on. And I just feel as a teenager that I would feel safer being home alone if it was residential, because there aren't as many people that we don't know going in and out. And if it was residential, we could get to know them as they were with our own community. Because when we have people move in our community, we get to know them and we know who they are. But as commercial, it would be random people, different people every day. And we have a kid in the back of our neighborhood that waits for a middle school bus up there by himself sometimes. And he gets scared just going into my house, and he's known me his whole life. So I just feel like it'd be safer make us feel safer if it was residential. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's all the comment cards we have on
Okay.
this item.
Okay, I'll close public comment with that. Questions for staff?
One quick one. So when we're talking about the entire Deerfield overlay zone, is it possible to take those two parcels out of the consideration and?
Yes, we actually had labeled this as a special area.
Okay.
And when the moratorium came through, there are actually two moratoriums in place for the Route 9 corridor. One is for Route 9 without the 5-acre area, and the other moratorium is for the 5-acre area because they realized that they had left it out of the original one. So they're actually treated as two separate moratoriums, and they are, this area is designated as a sub-area within the corridor.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
So, I mean, really, because what we're thinking about is, you know, the city hired a mediator just for the 5-acre one, and that was their agreed upon thing. And then there's the other, all of Highway 9, which was a very intense process too, that we had plenty of public meetings and consultants galore, and that was a 1.5 years worth of work too. And so that's why I'm trying to figure out kind of what has changed.
Why?
You know, what's the specific what's the specific development that has created this? Is there anything? Okay.
Well,
You guys go first now.
Shoot.
There's no specific development. It was brought up through some neighbors that they felt that perspective, residential was probably not the best economic use for the corridor.
So someone else is telling them,
Well,
well, that's
so-
nice.
Oh, no, it was, there were people within the corridor who felt that. And it sort of percolated up, I guess.
Ruins.
Robin, I was talking to Paul, when we were discussing the overall Highway 9 being commercial, I don't recall us even hearing any discussion. I know we were talking at one point below Bethany Bend, but anything above that, none of this, as I recall, came before us to be reviewed, that there were these sections that.
Well, everything came back to the planning commission, and we have the reports that were discussed, that we
Okay,
included. So
well, I'm
you all
old,
were
I'm
a
old,
part
so I
of it.
could have
Yeah.
forgotten.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
one question I'm sorry. Okay, accept it, okay, okay.
Yeah, if you guys remember, this is a really, I think looking down the board, I think Fred and I were the only ones that were here at the time, but it was a really contentious debate.
Right.
So this is my recollection of it. Is the gentleman or two that are with the parcels that are in consideration stood before us and wanted to argue the importance of them having their rights to develop their land the way they saw fit. And because it was on Highway 9, they made a pitch for it to be commercial. And rightfully so, the community on a 5-acre, it is what it's described as by the street name. It's a 5-acre development neighborhood. You know, beautiful homes set back. They're part of what Milton was in the very beginning. And, you know, so there was this debate that took place. And it was significant enough that the city decided to write and, you know, made a good decision to bring in an arbitrator to work their way through that. And in order for that gentleman to be allowed to do his commercial development, after several meetings that engaged the community, the gentlemen who wanted to sell their property as commercial, they reached a pretty detailed set of restrictions. And you know, it had setbacks and density of replanting that was going to be required if anything was done. You know, it had, if I remember, 360-degree architecture was required, so to make sure that anything for the community that was going to be seen by them was going to have to meet a certain standard. We changed the way we were allowing the curb cuts to be different, so that there wasn't going to be any interaction with the community when the neighborhood they were trying to come and go with the commercial entity. Anyway, long story short, I think the guy has been asking too much money for his land. It hasn't sold as commercial, like he was standing before us insisting he had to have. And now he's saying, well, I want to do residential again. But we, as a city, are saying we want Highway 9 corridor to be commercial. So there's the impasse. Not the impasse, but that's the debate right now. You've got this community that was, I think, guaranteed some things as a result of the hours they invested to come to a negotiated conclusion that they should be able to hang their hat on. And then we've got this commercial requirement that we're trying to look at to say this is what we think is good for the city. Now, I intentionally drove this area a couple times in the last couple of days just to get a feel for it. And it's different than the rest of the Highway 9 commercial corridor today.
Absolutely.
You know, it's different for a couple of reasons. It's different because you've got Crooked Creek right there. It's different because you've got some other undeveloped land right there. Not very far away from there, you do have the transition into commercial. So, and that's encroaching on this area of Highway 9. And you know, as soon as you get north of Crooked Creek, it goes back to even less developed. You've got some really spotty stuff right now because the growth hasn't come out there and demanded the commercial part of that at this point. So, in my mind, this is not a very hard decision. I think that there's room for the city to get what we want out of this from the standpoint of trying to move Highway 9 to the commercial entity that we want it to be. And I think there's also room to honor a negotiation that the city participated in this area that's a little bit different than the rest of Highway 9 at this point. And there's a chance to save it. Now, I'm not happy about this guy flipping on us, where he stood.
They're not flipping. They're not flipping on. This has nothing to do with. Nobody's flipping on it.
Yeah.
Oh,
No.
No, I'm talking
Thank
about
you.
the city's not.
All right.
No, I know. Nor are they. I mean.
Yeah. Oh, he wanted commercial
No, I mean.
and stood before us.
It's all been agreed upon.
Yeah, I know. But when I'm recalling the contentious meetings where he stood before us and was demanding that he have a chance to do commercial, when at the time it was AG1.
But in all fairness, there are four landowners. They each own two acres.
Right.
So there's 4
Yep.
acres on either side
Mhm.
of the road, and they all participated in good faith.
Yeah.
With the residents of 5 acres.
Right.
And it was a very arduous process, but at
Yeah.
the end, with the neighbors achieved.
Everybody came to a reasonable
Limiting the
conclusion.
amount of commercial in terms of what the uses
Yep.
were, they're very limiting. And then, there were some residential uses allowed as well. So that's
Yep.
all listed out and all the parties agreed to.
Yep.
Right.
It's on
And
page
so-
7 of the document.
That's right.
Yeah,
And-
I've got it. That's why I'm willing to support this.
Right.
Okay.
And so basically, when the discussion percolated up about the fact that we really should be concerned about, because we've got 2 residential developments going on Route 9, that the
Right.
residents within the corridor said, well, gee, we're losing all of our very little left commercial space to residential. Maybe we should look at putting a moratorium and then changing the ordinance to prohibit
Yep.
any further residential use. So that's how the discussion started.
Yep.
And then the issue was, well, we covered, the moratorium covered the whole corridor with the exception of 5 acres.
Right.
So maybe we should cover 5 acres. So the second moratorium covered 5 acres. So that's where we are. We're here with
Right.
that in place.
And so I think it's important to remember that even though that Michael Elliott worked with 5 acres, but through the visioning process of Highway 9 North, it was agreed upon by the communities that the areas that were adjacent to Highway 9, that they could be a limited type residential use.
Mhm.
And that's what was
And
approved
it's
as
in
the
there.
visioning,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And now there's certain entities that are asking it to be flipped to only commercial, so that's what, I mean, we're looking at.
Yeah.
What
It
is-
all-
I think the 5 acres.
It all makes
I think
sense.
Right.
I think the 5 acres deal is a deal, and
Absolutely.
You'd
we
leave
need
it
to move
alone.
on from
Right,
that.
Right.
yeah.
That's done.
And talk about maybe the other Highway 9 stuff. I'm perfectly
Right.
content with leaving the way the deal was at 5 acres alone.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is.
One question, Robin, on your, and we really appreciate all these parcels that you identified. Some of them were kind of shocking, but there's one at the top, right at Forsyth, on page 1.
Okay,
The top right corner,
right.
that open space, what is
That's the golf course.
that?
Yeah,
Okay,
there
that
is a
the-
tiny piece that
that
is
swings around. Okay.
Right. There is a tiny piece that is under a large, like 100-foot wire transmission line, and you
Right.
can't build a building in it. And
Okay.
they're using it for parking that we've allowed them to do from the Forsyth used car lot.
Right.
But there could really be no
I
building.
just want to make sure that.
It was the park.
we-
It
what-
was a golf course.
Golf
yeah.
course, okay.
And some of these other parcels, I'm not saying all of them, but I think some of them should be residential. I mean, there are
Yeah, I
some.
Totally.
I mean, there are some parcels that are like in between 2 residentials,
Right.
and I don't think I don't think a commercial property should be in between 2 residential neighborhoods. I mean, I think that just doesn't. I don't think it's appropriate.
Well, that was pointed out in one of those when, I don't know, the retail furniture or whatever's
Yeah. Well, you do have, and you have
Outrageous
that.
bargain.
outrageous.
On page
no,
1 and on
outrageous
page
bargains.
2,
Yeah.
you've
How
got
that
that.
got.
Yes.
You've
That
got an
came in
example where
after,
it's
like,
After,
Laurel
oh,
did,
it
yeah.
it was
Right, right,
before,
right.
yeah.
So, for the sake of argument, there potentially are some services that those communities might want nearby. And it is on Highway, it's on Highway 9, which is intended to be.
So
a
let's
commercial.
just say parcel 1, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're, I'm just being honest, you think
No.
that neighborhood would want a commercial?
That would be
No.
Lake Laurel, and
Nor
it
would I
would be
need-
the
yeah,
other.
I wanna
Yeah,
support
no,
that.
that's-
I'm with you on this.
Right.
There are some exceptions on
And
here.
that's what I'm saying, like,
Because that one's
can we
deep.
spot zone
We're not gonna
each
spot- we're not gonna
parcel?
go
I mean, is that, I don't think that's what we're here for, though, right?
No.
That's kind of where I'm getting, you know?
I've got just one question. I'm fairly new to this. But we've had the comprehensive land use plan, which was going on right when I first started. Was there any comment about changing this during the comprehensive land use plan, changing the Deerfield thing, or is this something that truly came up afterwards?
Afterwards.
Okay.
So my question is, we did this maybe 2 years ago?
3 years ago.
3 years ago. So we're not gonna pick and choose and change lots, so either we live with what we did, which was fine, and took a year to do, and that's what I think we should do. I think, I would make a
You're
recommendation.
saying leave it alone?
Leave it alone?
I said leave it alone. I make a recommendation to RZ 16-09, deny it.
Including the 5 acre?
Well, by doing that, we're leaving 5 acre alone.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they want, right? They don't want any of this, so we're doing what they want. And we're doing what we all
Yeah, right,
looked
yeah,
at 3
deny
years
it,
ago and did, so nothing changes,
I would agree with that.
right?
You're saying the whole highway, nothing changed?
Nothing changes. We did this, we went through it, leave it alone. People that are here have spoken, and,
I second the motion.
okay.
You have to make it officially.
Oh.
That's all it was.
I thought, my intention, or his intention, I think, that was a motion.
That was a
Oh,
motion.
okay, that was a
And
motion.
I'll second
Okay,
that
I'm just
motion.
making sure.
Mark, Fred, all right.
So,
We'll have some, is there any discussion on the motion?
Yeah.
Not
Fred,
on,
Paul?
okay, go ahead, Paul.
Go ahead, Fred.
No, I was just gonna ask, on the, again, back to your, parcels across, you had one that's undeveloped, under development, but you don't, explain what kind
which
of
page was
development.
that, sir?
Page 1.
Page 1, that is a single-family subdivision that Richard Wernick is doing, very,
That's all I need to
yeah.
know. It didn't say commercial.
I'm sorry, I
It
didn't
just
get
said
it,
under
but I can
development.
tell you that,
I
yeah.
questioned that,
Yeah.
okay? Paul.
I just want to make sure I understand the implications of the motion. So, what you're saying, Mark, is if we just deny it, all the current
Zoning.
properties, all the current zoning stays
Stays the same.
intact?
Yep.
And it does not include 5 acre?
no, it does include keeping 5 acres the way it is, with the agreement.
Right, with the agreement in place?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's,
Right.
it's almost like,
Let's
none of this
This
ever
never
happened.
happened.
It's almost like,
This-
it's almost like it never happened.
Status
So-
quo.
Yeah.
It really is.
Right, so,
Status quo.
so my question, I guess, is for staff. So what was the motivation from either mayor and council or by staff to ask us to consider this in the first place?
It came up as it was framed as an economic issue in that we currently have, as I mentioned, two of these parcels that are under development are residential developments. One is down the North Main Street area, and the other is the one that we just talked about up at the, way up at the north end. And so, I believe that the thought was, from an economic perspective, that we have so little undeveloped land left in the city, and that this is also zoned for commercial, mixed use, as well as residential, that maybe it would be more prudent to reserve this land for a mixed use / commercial development as opposed to residential development. And that's really the genesis of this discussion.
Well, I certainly can agree to the fact that we need, and we have said we need commercial, but I don't see how we can go back to something that the city committed to 3 years ago. Now we say, oh, well, I think it's time, we need commercials, so let's try to take some of this. So that's why I second the motion to leave it the way it was.
I think you're absolutely right, Fred. But I also think that there's two parts to the story. In my mind, there's an absolute for 5 acre community. That's a deal we made.
Right.
That's a deal we need to keep. I also think that there are some parcels on here, though, that by leaving it status quo, are probably going to get developed as residential, and some of those will make sense to do that. But there's some others on here that absolutely don't. And and we know right now, Milton is a popular place to develop. And we also know that it's hard to get into Milton. When the article came out recently about what our median cost of homes is, it was like $550 or something like that, which is now higher than Roswell and higher than Alpharetta and higher than Johns Creek. So we've got this barrier of entry into Milton. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But I also know that I don't necessarily want Highway 9 to be overrun by it's the only place you can build townhomes. And then we don't get the services that we need to support this growing community. That you've got to go outside Milton to get to the services that we eventually are going to need too. And so I'm prepared to support the motion, but I also want to make sure that you guys think about the fact that at some point we're going to probably have to come back and visit this because there's going to be a demand for commercial that we won't be able to meet if there's an entitlement to, not an entitlement, but there's the ability to do a variety of residential types of construction here that at the end of the day isn't going to serve us well as a city when you look beyond what's immediately in front of us. You have to look to the future, which is part of our charge, is to look for the future.
I understand that.
So I think we're asking for a chance to revisit this down the road because you know it's going to come back before us, but I'm prepared to support the motion.
Good. Any other comments on the motion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay.
Great.
Okay, the next item is RZ 16-07, consideration to amend the AG1 district regarding paved and unpaved roads in Chapter 64, Article 6, Division 2, and Section 64-416, Development Standards.
Mr. Chairman, as you know, the purpose of these text amendments are to amend the existing ordinances to ensure that any parcel fronting an unpaved road, which is a gravel road, remains 3 acres in size. This also includes those parcels that have frontage on both an unpaved road and a paved road. Now, we did present this item to you at your October 26th meeting, and you asked for more information from staff, so the item was deferred at that time. And the information you asked from staff was a list of unpaved roads in Milton, as well as a map showing the unpaved roads and parcels that are also adjacent to paved roads. Staff notes that the map showing the unpaved roads and parcels will be provided prior to the Planning Commission. However, we were not able to obtain the map. We have given you the parcels with their sizes, and you should have that in front of you. However, if you have any questions about any particular parcels, we will be able to pull it up through the web if you want to see any particular parcels in terms of how they fall in terms of fronting paved and unpaved areas. So I'm sorry, our GIS, we just were not able to produce it, so
Okay.
We'll have this instead, okay?
And so I guess, like, when you say parcels, is there a way to differentiate between a parcel that's has a building on it or a parcel that could be developed? Because I think that's what we're focusing on, right?
No, you're
So-
100%.
So what are the parcels that are not developed that are on the front to unpaved road? I think that's the thing we really need to say.
Yes, and that's what we're, Robin,
Do these
Like,
public
all-
comment?
all these are parcels that are not developed?
Correct. Well, they're not, I mean, they may have
This
a
one.
house on it,
Because, but,
I mean,
This
they're-
Yeah.
to this.
okay.
That's just a road.
So I guess if it's a 3-acre parcel, it could be developed into 2 one-acre houses eventually someday. Is that what we're?
well, what we're saying is if it touches an unpaved road, it's gonna be required to have 3 acres. In the past, if it's touching a paved and unpaved, you could always defer to the paved road requirements.
I was just trying to figure out how much is really left out of all this that would have to, that could be developed. You know, first, that's nothing on, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So-
Robin, do you wanna go
Well,
over
it
your?
can all be developed.
That's what I said.
It's just a matter of what size.
Yeah.
Do you have a presentation, or do we call for public comment?
If you have other, I mean,
Oh, we're gonna have a lot of questions.
okay, well, I only have one speaker card.
Okay, let's
so,
go ahead and do that.
Is Daniel Fernandez?
Good evening. Daniel Fernandez, 14855 Wood Road. Just want to reiterate some things that I said at the last meeting. At the last planning commissioning meeting, it appeared that the board didn't know why these text amendments were coming forth. At least that's what it came across. There's a lot of history behind this, and it's definitely an issue that's really important to the residents of Milton. And just from my perspective, being involved in this for several months, some things that stick out as some important events are Milton City Council directive to have 3 acres imposed on lots on or adjacent to gravel roads. The development of property at the intersection of Nix Road and Freemanville Road, development of a lot with less than 3 acres. And then finally, subdivision of a property or the proposed subdivision of a property at the intersection of Wood Road and Birmingham Highway. And some of the details of that matter can be provided by council or city managers from a letter that was provided from a lawyer that represented 24 or so residents on that road. The importance that I noted last time at the meeting was maps that included these new text amendments. An issue that we came across is that there seems to be a lot of leeway with interpretations with language and words that seem to fall away regardless of the initial intent. And some of the maps, currently the comprehensive plan, Parks and Recreation Plan, and the Milton Trail Plan, these are all maps that showed the extents of the gravel roads, which at that point on some of these issues, such as Wood Road, held no weight at all. So that is the importance. I know we're trying to get, I think I saw some of the text amendments previously that were bringing forth the inclusion of reference to those maps, and that's why I said at the last meeting it's important that we have those maps updated and that those maps are referenced so that there is no question on an interpretation of words. One of the examples is on some of the new proposed definition was the use of paved extensions, and with that, I ask, what is a paved extension? Can we now start interpreting what an extension is, what a paved extension is? And so that's, once again, an example of why it's very important that we reference these maps and that they're given the weight that they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, Robin?
That's all the comments we have. But I'd be happy to, if you have any questions, if you want to look at certain parcels, I can,
I just want to have like
them.
a little, maybe a broad discussion real quick. So
Okay.
what this ordinance says is if you're on Wood and Freemanville, no matter how much frontage you have on each road, if you abut a gravel road, the entire development has to be minimum 3 acres. Is that correct?
That's how it's written currently.
And then I guess, so if you
With some caveats.
No, there is no caveats.
I thought the caveats are with the number of feet of frontage.
Well, I mean, I changed it from the last time so that it read basically that no matter what the frontage, so let's say on page 1 of the first one in AG1, it says 3 acres.
Right.
When a parcel at the time of the adoption of this ordinance has frontage on both.
Where are you, Robin? I'm sorry, I want to make sure I agree with you.
It's RZ.
Oh, okay, right there, number 3.
07. It's the yellow. I did
Yep.
highlight it, so
I got
that's
it.
what I changed or amended. It says when a parcel at the time of the adoption of this ordinance has frontage on both a paved road and an unpaved road, regardless of the width of the gravel road frontage, if the lot frontage on the gravel road does not meet the requirements below, said lot shall provide 35 feet of road frontage and at least 100 feet of lot width at the building line. So I was saying that we're going to default back to a normal AG1 requirement. I mean, that's what's proposed.
Mhm.
That's what was instructed as far as no matter what,
Right.
even if you had
Okay. I didn't read
40
it that
feet
way,
of
but-
frontage on
right.
a gravel road and 300 feet on a paved road, this is saying you still have to do everything as 3 acres.
Good. I misread that, but that's great.
Okay. But that's currently how it states.
All right, and so, go for it, yeah. I'll open up public comment.
I was just wanting to say I have not seen the latest text amendments, and I don't know if they were changed since the last CZIM I attended. So I don't know what you guys are looking at,
Okay.
where you're seeing, and I think it'd be important that the public have
There you go.
a copy of that.
Online, it was online too, so.
Thank you.
A little caveat to my first question is, so let's just say, because there's a lot of small parcels here. So let's say you have 2.4 acres and you want to build a house. Are you saying you can't build a house on it?
Well, I think that 2.4 is going to have to be a grandfathered, non-conforming lot. I mean, you can't
Okay. I'm
deny
kind
them of
okay.
that
That's where, okay.
usage,
Okay.
so, yeah.
Okay.
So,
I mean, you can't fix a lot that's 2.4.
Follow that all the way to the end, so they can't, right, if it's not, it has nothing on it today, and they want to build something on it,
They can,
they can.
right.
And it's off of a dirt road or?
Yeah, even
Right.
if it's off of a dirt road, I mean, if it's grandfathered
Right.
in, like, there are a lot of actual
There's a
lots
lot.
on gravel
Yeah.
that do not meet 3 acres, but we
Yeah.
can't, and that was all done way before, probably a long, long, long
Good.
time ago.
I like where you're going with it.
But,
So we're just concerned about, let's say there's 50 acres.
uh-huh,
We're just concerned about the houses that front it. The rest of the houses, if you went to a subdivision on a gravel road, your fronting gravel lots have to be 3 acres, but everything behind it can be 1?
no,
So
that's not what,
everything in that
everything.
subdivision has to be 3 acres?
The
Okay.
whole, yeah.
Okay.
And if I understand it correctly, Mark, if you're, use a 50-acre example, and let's say the length of your frontage is on, well, you've got 2 frontages. One's on gravel, one's on paved. Even if your frontage on paved is 4 or 5 acres, everything, because it touches a dirt road, still has to be 3-acre minimum.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Because, I was kind of,
So Nick's Road wouldn't have happened, for example. The Nick's Road development wouldn't have happened the
Well,
way it is.
White Columns would never have happened.
Right?
Yeah,
there's a lot of small parcels on here, which I was kind of shocked at.
yeah. It's almost 2 to 1.
So, I mean, I kind of want to give the flip of the coin here. So you have 300 or say 500 feet on Freemanville and 50 feet on Wood. As of today, you can develop 1-acre lots, correct? The whole way. Is that correct?
Oh, that's how we've interpreted it, yes, up to this point.
Because it's either or.
It's
So
either or.
it's answered.
Yeah. Oh, so of course you're not. Yeah. Okay. So okay. I mean, this is pretty restrictive. Is what I mean. What because I was trying to say, all right, whoever has the most road frontage, if you have more road frontage on the paved road, you get your 1 acre. If you have more road frontage on the gravel roads, you get your 3 acres, or maybe do a ratio or something. Because that's where I was going at first, but I see a lot of these are just small parcels. A lot of these are small parcels.
But this is only at the corner, yeah, there are just at the
Right. I
corner,
mean, they
right,
really
yeah.
are. And so now I'm kind of like,
That's another thing, is that in my opinion, the code has been interpreted a certain way. You have subdivision, and then you have zoning. And what's been said is that the zoning trumps the subdivision, but that's not the case. The codes in subdivision were put in place for a reason. You can't just ignore it and say that it was put in there for no reason. They work together, and so subdivision takes care of subdivision, zoning takes care of zoning, and you can put them together in a way that works. But that interpretation has not been the case
Yeah.
with the city.
Yeah.
I don't think there's an issue, but I think we could further clarify for some people that I think they work together. The fact that one code says 1 acre on paved and 3 acres on gravel or on or adjacent, and they work together. That's just not, it's an interpretation issue, but the codes currently work. Obviously.
But they don't,
interpretation is a
actually.
problem.
They don't work anymore.
Yeah.
Because what's happening is, we've had an outcry from the community to preserve the rural Milton. You see this,
Interpretation, because there's interpretation. When there's
right,
interpretation.
and that's what we're trying to get rid of, is the room for interpretation. We also have to say, Milton was what it was for a long time because there wasn't a demand for development down here because we were just outside the development area. And now there's pressure for development. And so the things that didn't require interpretation before on our books worked because we were never tested. And now we've been tested a couple times, and in my mind, the litmus test was a failure because there was wiggle room in the interpretation, and staff did what they were supposed to do. They interpreted it the way they saw fit, and in some cases there was some community pushback against that, but they did what was right within what was allowed on the interpretation. But we're also now saying, because there was some pushback on that makes some sense about where we want to go for the future, it is okay to put a stake in the ground and say, before now, it was this, but going forward, it's going to be different. And the different is what we're being asked to consider. So I guess, to address one of the concerns you've stated is, I'm okay with it being different, and I'm okay with that because I'm listening to the community who's saying, we want to slow down some of that change that's happening. We also want to, in other instances, stop it. and there are, everybody's saying, gee, can't you put 3 or 5 acre minimum requirements on it? Well, no, because that's then considered a taking, so you can't legally do that. But we do have this code that does create a minimum standard because it's been there for a long time. It hasn't been enforced the way we're talking about, not enforced, hasn't been interpreted the way we're trying to tighten up some of this stuff. So it gives us a chance to do better because now the pressure is on us to do that.
So just kind of breaking this down, if you take all this, there's 20 lots that are over 3 acres. There's only 4 lots that are over 10 and 2 that are over 30. So I don't think we're talking anymore of what's left, really. We're basically talking about maybe 2 lots that could develop some type of substantial subdivision. Most of these half of them are grandfathered in, so we're not. So we I think, need to figure out what the number we can live with, but we're talking about 2 major lots. That's about it. Yeah.
Can you pull up one of them? Can you pull up the 63 lot?
Yeah.
The 63 and the 35.
63 is the Westbrook, and
35 is the other big one.
And to go along with what Mark's saying is, to me, it seems like the rural characters, if you hold everything along those gravel roads to 3 acres, and so even if it's a big development, the back of White Collins, say, those lots would all be 3 acres on Nix Road. But the stuff that's not fronting that road, I would be fine if it's all 1 acres, to be honest with you.
You're fine, I'm sorry.
If you've got frontage on Nix Road, using White Collins as an example that we know, every lot that would be on Nix Road would have to be conform. It have to be 100 feet wide, have to be 3 acres.
Right.
But the rest of White Collins that all came in off of Freemanville would all have to be 1 acre.
Okay.
I could live with that.
I mean, that's kind of where I was kind of going with. But I know Paul's on. He's talking about just everything needs to be 3 acres. And I think this is an example. I think this is actually a perfect example. We have Mountain Road. How much road frontage do you think is on Mountain?
This must be the gravel.
Yeah, the Mountain's the paved road.
Yeah.
But it also has to do with if you have access from the gravel.
Correct.
Then you still keep it 3 acre.
Correct.
Yeah, anything that fronts
Correct.
the gravel road would be 3 acres. So they have to be. So
All
everyone
right.
on that
And
road would look at a 3 acre lot every time they're going.
What's the road? What's the road frontage on Westbrook? I guess that'd be like 1,800 or something.
No, I think
No, that's a total.
You added them.
So you.
So
So
about
2 to
1,100.
2,000. Okay.
1,200.
So let's just take these 2 examples. So Paul is saying that all is 3 acres. Wilson is saying if all the lots abutting Westbrook is 3 acres, but everything interior is 1 acre. But Wilson, are you saying you have to, the subdivision entrance should be off of, it should be off of Mountain, correct?
I would be fine with it off of Mountain. My thought would be is everything that would be on Westbrook would have to be conforming with a regular 3 acre
3
lot.
acres,
So
okay.
you couldn't have.
No, I'm
you couldn't have
100% with
one
that.
See, but
3 acre
so,
lot.
so I own that
1,000
land, so
feet
here's what I
long.
do. I take this and I make almost a flag lot. I have 2 flag lots for the 3 acres, and then instead of doing conforming lots, and then boom, I got 1 acre homes behind it.
Yeah.
On the developer.
Can they do that?
Sure.
Yeah, but that's the whole idea, is that there's clear intent that that's not what we want. So
Right.
it gets to-
But how do you stop it?
Gets to the city,
Right.
We close, I know.
Yeah.
Actually, we've closed.
We closed public comment, I don't wanna get
comments,
too, in the yeah.
So, but the point is
But that's,
could you isolate those and say anything that fronts Westbrook Road in this case has to be a 3 acre lot that has to be carved out of that has to front Westbrook Road.
I guess,
So you'd have to carve out 3 acre lots that all had to be along Westbrook Road.
Yeah,
so you're gonna get the
you're
same
missing-
answer anyway.
But
correct?
the,
Is that what you're saying?
but in my mind, the point of this is to protect the view also off of Mountain. And you're giving up, if you're giving it up to 1 acre lots, it's gonna be boom, 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 1 acre lots, and then.
But
But
you
what's the
want
difference
lots
if they-
across the street,
Yeah,
yeah, next door, you know, I mean,
Then you're gonna have Sable, which I live, but you're gonna have Sable Point, which is just
Yeah.
bowling alley.
And we're trying to stop that.
Yeah.
And nothing wrong with Stable Point, but we're trying to, with what we have left, we're trying to slow down the development. That's, I think, part of the objective of this is
So
to.
there's 3,000 road frontage. Well, that actually makes it easy. Because I was trying to think, maybe we could do like a ratio, maybe you do 33%, whatever the road frontage is, maybe 33% has to be 3 acre minimums. I was trying to find a common ground on it to where,
So that one on Nix is actually the subdivision that's already under development, so it hasn't been final platted, so that, 16.2, the last parcel on Nix has actually already been subdivided, so that's out.
So that's out anyway.
That leaves,
and what are they doing with that? They're just doing 1 acres on that, I'm assuming?
right, yes.
Sure they are, because they're gonna
That
get more
Yep.
yield.
That leaves just the
That's
2.
exactly what will happen.
So the next large one is on the Griddle.
Yeah, let's pull that one up too. See, it's good. That's not. How many acres are we looking at?
16.
I don't see six. Maybe the north side. Well, that's gravel and gravel. Maybe go up all the way to the top. The top, like go all the way. Yeah, that one. That. See, now that is a perfect example on what Paul is saying. Because as of now, are you saying? So this is a perfect example of what we don't want to happen, correct?
Right, because
This is yeah.
Just the strip.
That's a perfect example of what we want to prevent. I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about here. Yeah. And so Wilson, for this sake, you would say on this one, what I'm trying to.
I
understand what I'm saying
would
on
stay
this?
consistent, but yeah, I mean, my thought is, my hang up is I don't know how you define the 3 acre lots in a way that you wouldn't have a weird shape, right? So, I agree with what was said. You wouldn't want a 3 acre lot, in theory, that's 3,000 feet long by 16 feet deep or something, right? So I don't know how you would define it, but if you were to say it all had to have 100 feet wide and but it had to have 300 feet in depth or something too, I still would be okay with this.
See, I personally would, with 16 on between Summit and Brittle, where they're all 3 acres, 5 acre lots. I would definitely not want 1 acre lots in there. That's just me.
But you would still.
But I was okay with the,
But on this one, you'd still have every one of these would have to be a 3 acre lot.
Well, that's
So
true.
You'd
Everything
only
would have to be
You'd only
3
be able to get, how big was
That
this
is true.
piece?
You probably wouldn't even have. You could probably only get.
I mean,
Yeah, it's true. It's all on a gravel road, right?
Yeah, so what I'm saying is
So if-
everything there would have to be 3 acre lots, so you might be able to
You-
get
you
a
would-
1 acre lot here.
Right.
Right.
But then,
the rest
but
of it's
all of
gonna
a
be
sudden,
3
it looks
acre
like
lots.
spot zoning because you've allowed a couple
One?
of 1 acre lots in the mix of what, all that stuff around it is bigger. But because they've
Because
got,
anything that fronted gravel would have to be 3 acres.
No, if
I
that's-
understand what you're saying, but
Right.
I don't see how you could get that one little.
that's one that you probably could never, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know that you could economically develop that, because anything coming across this way,
There's just no way,
going
'cause
across a creek,
if it has
to
to
get to
front-
3 1-acre lots is
No,
gonna be.
no,
next
yeah,
to
you're right.
impossible.
If it has to front a gravel road, those will all be 3 acres.
And so what I would say is, yeah, you'd have a 3 acre lot here,
Yes,
another one
you're
here,
right.
another one here, another one there.
We're only talking about 2 parcels, basically, right now.
Actually, there was another one I saw on Clarity with 35.
Yeah, let's take a look at that one.
35.7.
On what road?
Clarity.
Clarity.
First one. It's almost like anything
2.8.
gravel has to be 3 acres.
35.7.
I mean, I don't even think you need to set out a measurement, because there's so little. And then it covers it.
So it's another parcel in the middle of that, Robin, huh?
There it is.
Looks like it goes into Cherokee.
Yeah, so that's definitely, yeah, you know, a lot more gravel roads, so,
Oh, I know where that is. Okay, so,
Yeah, I
and
know
that
where
whole
that is.
piece is zoned 1-acre lots right there, too.
where?
'Cause that's the back part of that Sedgwick
Oh, yeah.
neighborhood. That's all zoned 1-acre lots right there. 'Cause
So
that's-
this is interesting, so you have the one on the left, but I think because the map was so small, there's actually a tiny little, if you look at the northern part of this parcel, it actually has a little frontage on Clarity.
So where's the parcel?
It's
That's
to the left.
funny.
Hold on.
And so that Sedgwick, this Sedgwick neighborhood, is you're going towards, say, Julie's house. Julie's house is kind of right across the street. Yeah, it's on the right going towards Julie's.
So hold on, so where's the parcel in between? Okay, so click on the other one. So who owns that little sliver?
It's an easement, maybe?
So, okay.
Okay, so he owns both sides of the, road. Clarity on this side.
So maybe he owned it before.
We put the road?
So-
Well,
That road is a little, that's not a,
It's not usable.
yeah,
It's just
I mean,
it's
that's.
a personal.
Yeah,
lot.
Yeah,
Right.
truly, yeah, it's like your grandfather's old
So-
farm road or something.
So click on this one again.
Which one?
The other one.
This one?
No, the other one. So
So
that according,
It's
so
covered somewhere.
I'm just gonna go by the code here. If we go with what we got in front of us, is that that's a 3 acre minimum? I mean,
Yeah, it was 35, it was
that landowner's gonna love that.
Was that subdivided, or was that always that way?
I'm
Well,
telling you,
most
guys, we're going down we need to find a
Well,
re-
so
you
in
know,
that
now.
case, he comes in and
Yeah, I
petitions
mean,
for a hardship.
I think he'd have to come in
Notice
for
on
that.
this one, the intent was to have interparcel access with Hickory Flat, or Hickory whatever, the subdivision. Did you see how
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
that's, this here is, it was meant to have another phase from that subdivision into this open land.
But it's not today.
Yes.
Well, I mean,
That
But
neighborhood,
could-
if you looked that road, it's,
Correct.
this literally was gonna be another phase. That road dead ends,
Mhm.
like they just
Yeah,
stopped it.
right.
You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Like,
yeah.
it's like, oh crap, we ran out of money, let's stop it.
Right,
You know,
so,
it's-
so in that case, even though if we take the action that we do the 3 acre minimum, and so that would fall into that, he comes and petitions us with a hardship for that,
Yeah, that one would.
and he gets the exception.
That one would, yeah. That's kind of. I was gonna look at that other one, the one that was on the other side.
Which one?
The one that the other
Or
piece
he
of the other
could take that
parcel.
little parcel and
Yeah, the one on the other
to
side.
the other piece and take it off.
No,
that
the
part.
other one.
You know what I'm saying?
The-
And then it doesn't touch anything.
Right.
That's probably what he would do.
The, I guess the east. No, I'm at the west. Yeah. And so I was just be curious from the city's standpoint, if we did the 3 acre minimum, on this, would the city want the entrance from Hickory Flat, or would they want it on Clarity? I was just curious.
I mean, that Clarity Road,
It's
it has to be wide as this desk right here. It's not.
Okay.
Not really a road.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
now
it's a road, but it's, I mean.
No, but if we develop a gravel road standard, it could be then graded to gravel road standard.
Yeah, I follow what you're saying.
Now, let's look at
And
a
then
couple
you sell that
smaller
lot for, those lots for a premium, because it is estate lots off of a dirt road.
Hey, Robin, let's look at a couple smaller lots. Okay. Maybe Old Doris Road, that's 6.9 acres. Having a Milton geographic lesson here.
Yeah.
And y'all know you can just go to Fulton County GIS, so this is kind of a nice thing if you ever want to look up stuff.
Oh, really?
Do it off the website.
Is that where she is? Is that where you are?
Old Doris Road.
Google Fulton County GIS.
So that's actually so that abuts Doris and Old.
That's the other one.
No,
I think it's this
yeah, I think it's
right below
it's
that.
the one below it, maybe. That's 1 acre.
No.
No, I don't see 6.9.
I could pull up the tax ID.
I mean,
There it is.
that's it.
That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it's well, here, this will be another interesting one. See, look at all this stuff that coming up. So now we have, so with this one, it abuts 2 paved roads and a gravel road. This is good. Okay.
Yeah, I think it does.
But to me,
Everything's skewed off.
it's about preserving the look and feel of rural
Yeah,
Milton.
but
So I have no sweat whatsoever on saying 3 acre minimum on that, because it preserves the look and feel of rural Milton, period. And you have dirt road exposure,
So you had, yeah, but
or gravel road exposure.
see, for me, if you cut that in, I mean, it's 6.9 acres, so you have a 3 acre lot across the back, you're cutting that in half, you'd have 1 3 acre lot in Old Doris, and 3 1 acre lots on,
Doris.
yeah, Doris or whatever.
Yeah, I'm trying to get rid of the 1 acre lots.
Trying to eliminate that.
I mean,
So
my
what-
thing is,
what-
again, I'm fairly new to this, but it seems to me like a lot of these things, if there was really a big problem, we would have brought it up during the comprehensive land use thing versus trying to backdoor it now. Like, I mean,
We're not backdooring this at all. This has been a debate for years.
then why wasn't it brought? I mean, again, I wasn't here for the whole thing, but
Right.
it seems like if I were working on it, I don't want to phrase it antagonistically because I don't
Right.
intend it that way, but
Right.
it seems like some of these things would have been like, well, shit, let's just put these all in 3 acre lots. Well, we're working on this
Yeah.
for a year. Or whatever. I mean, again,
Right.
so that's one of my hang-ups. I was like, man, we just got here, just changed all the things, and now it's like,
Right.
so. Again, I don't mean this in an antagonistic way. It just seems to me it's like, well, man, why didn't we do this before?
We should have had you on the planning commission sooner.
I think what the way is everyone in the community has always assumed if you abut a dirt road, you get 3 acre lots. No matter if you're abutted a paved road or not. But just recently,
It's been tested.
it's been interpreted that's not the case.
Yeah, so for me, I wouldn't know how to define it. But, and I agree with that, by the way. I mean, if you front a gravel road, it ought to be a 3 acre lot. I mean,
Right.
I'm 100% again, for that. My thing is when you have another 60 acres that's on Freemanville or whatever, I mean, trying to split the baby, right? As
Okay.
everybody that's on the gravel road gets their 3 acre lots, and everybody that's on the regular side of things gets the regular stuff.
Right.
So I just don't know how to
Well,
define
I'll
it, but
give
that's
you,
where
I'll
that's
give you an
at.
example of, let's use Freemanville Road as the example. The school owns the parcel right near the bridge.
But Freemanville and
Or-
Wood,
Or Fulton County.
Sure.
Fulton County.
Robin, you Freemanville and Wood?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, you'll be able to see it. So
Yeah,
there's
it's
a
a
lot.
funky shape too.
There's
right,
a lot
where it
of
ties into wood.
There's a lot of frontage on Freemanville. It's a part, and Freemanville is part of our Rural Vista, our view shed protected area. So if it didn't have frontage on Wood Road, but it does, that could be developed as 1 acre lots if the Board of Education ever sold that property.
And like, for me, I don't have a problem. I mean, again, being in White Columns, and
Right.
if we're doing all the view shed things and doing the tree
Phillips.
protection stuff, and you have, and the slope thing, if we're doing all the things that we're supposed to do,
Right.
I wouldn't have a problem with that being 1 acre lots. But again, if
But
it's
see,
being clear
Right,
cut
but-
and
but-
it doesn't have the view shed, then I would have a
But
problem.
one of the charges you have as a planning commission member now is not to express your own opinion, but to make sure you listen to the voice of the community. So I may have a personal opinion about something, but I have to measure my personal opinion as to how it plays into what I'm hearing the community say.
Sure.
And in this particular instance, they would be saying to us, don't do it.
It's that
You know,
north one.
Make it
That's it.
estate lots
Yeah.
over there, because we're tired of the scraped earth, we're tired of the red clay. Stop the development, stop the overcrowding
He's
of
a
the
great
schools,
example.
stop the,
Sure.
the damage to the surface roads, stop the congestion at the intersections. And this is a way to do that.
But people keep voting with their pocketbooks and moving here for that type development. So the constituents
But they'll also
say
but they'll
something,
move
but also
here.
economically, they're paying millions of dollars to live in these
Right.
1 acre lots. I mean,
But
millions of dollars.
If you did a 3 acre minimum, they'll still come. And we'll have preserved the view shed. We'll have preserved the look and feel with a more population controlled community with less scraped earth.
Sure.
And our schools won't be overcrowded, and there won't be a demand for the next, where are you gonna put the next high school? Or the next middle school? And we're out of space for that.
So this is the Board of Education property.
Yeah.
Well, that's where I put it, Paul, right there.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Well, thank goodness they can't, because they should have
I'll tell
bought
you
that
what,
land in the
guys,
first place.
I'm torn on this one. I'll be honest with you. I can go both ways. I honestly can. I mean, I can see that if you're a landowner and you have that one on, Westbrook Road or whatever, and the vast majority of your property is on a paved road, and today I can do this, and now, I would like to try to find a common ground to where we don't give them all the 1 acre, but we protect our 3 acre minimum. I mean, I'm trying to find it, but I see where, Paul, believe me, I hear you.
But
and
that's why
I love it.
That's
you know?
why our board exists.
Yeah.
Is so when there is an exception, there's a hardship, they come before us, and we've granted
Is there gonna be a
exceptions.
difference in price from a land seller who's got 60 acres to sell to a developer
Oh, yeah.
that's gonna build, well, maybe not, because you're gonna be building higher, more premium homes, so the land is still, let's say, 125,000 an acre, whether you put, you know what I'm saying?
It's all
And
about
then-
a buildable
And then
lot,
you're gonna
you know,
build
right.
$1 million home instead of a $500,000 home, so you're gonna make your markup, so I don't know that
Yeah.
it's gonna hurt the seller, because the builder's gonna figure out how to get the same amount of money to build a three acre house or 3 1-acre houses.
Yeah,
So
the
we're not-
property
I don't
owner
think we're
says.
hindering anything.
They're gonna
Right.
the property owner will make more money doing 3 1 acre lots. than 3 acre.
The land's
No,
worth,
they
the
won't.
land's worth.
Yes, they will.
The
Because
land's
it's a
worth.
per acre,
No,
it's a per
It's
acre
a per
sale.
acre.
No, it's a per lot.
It's a per acre?
lot.
Per
When
acre.
you're going in to buy when you're going to buy vast property, it's all about how many buildable lots you can have.
Or
That
you-
really is. I mean, it's
or
about
you-
buildable
Or you can
lots.
look at it and go, okay, I gotta build 3 acre home, so I'm gonna build $1.4 million house. I know my markup is 30%, so I'm gonna make the same markup. I'm gonna make a higher markup on a more expensive home than on a less expensive.
Mark,
home.
my
We
only
just spent a
point to
couple
you
hours-
on that would be, it's a pyramid. So if it's $125,000 an acre, and it's a $375,000 lot versus $125,000, there are only so many people that are gonna build a $2.5 million house on a $500,000 lot. And so, I think the economics, in theory, over time are the same, but it's the supply and demand. Paul talked about it earlier, do you wanna make it where you can't live in Milton unless you can afford a $2 million house? So if we go to 3 acre lots,
Well,
that's what happens.
Yeah, and to Mark's point,
Which may or may not be.
we're only
wrong.
talking
I mean,
about
Such-
a handful of
yeah.
parcels here. It's really like
Two.
Really, yeah, maybe two. Well, one's already being developed, so maybe one, right?
The conversation I just had a couple weeks ago with the guy who's a real estate appraiser for all this area. He's also a large parcel landowner. the whole discussion was about what is his price going to be per acre? Not about what's going to get put on it later. All he wants is his per acre yield. So it's immaterial to him whether the developer who's coming in is going to get 10
Right.
lots yielded out of that, or he's going to get 50 lots yield out of that. He owns it and says, I want 125 grand an acre, or can I press it for 150 grand an acre?
I would get that one, yeah.
You know,
And then if you could do a development like they've got on, it's not Thompson, what's the one that goes towards Atlanta National off 372? Where it's all 5 acre lots, that's a newer deal.
River's
Well,
Edge.
that's River's
Edge,
Edge,
right.
yeah,
I mean,
off of,
Those
So
are three.
so it works, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
there is a precedence for having that type
He
of
hasn't
stuff.
sold
It's
one
just
since
having-
April.
I mean, I do think
In
that.
theory.
Well, I mean, I think everyone kind of understands where we're all going on this. So, do you want to? I mean, we haven't gotten into the actual nitty gritty like wording of it. So, I still don't have a consensus at all. So,
But we had fun with the maps.
yeah, it was. I mean, it actually it
No,
showed
it
some
shows
great.
perfect.
It showed great examples
Exact-
of what can happen in both directions. I mean,
Right.
it really did.
I go back to the fact that I don't necessarily support all their views, but there have been a lot of green signs around our community for a long time. But they were asking us for a conservation subdivision to solve the way our Milton looked, or was gonna look going forward. Because it was about preservation of the look and feel. Because they were willing to shove quarter-acre lots in the back of that so they could get all the look and feel up front. And what I'm saying here is, and that was wrong for our community, and we debated that and came, thank goodness, to that conclusion. But this is a chance to do the same thing with another solution, which is preserve a true rural area, because the lots are bigger. And I have no hesitation to cast my vote to do this, knowing darn well that if there are some of those that are truly exceptions and should be considered, those are the folks that are gonna stand before us and we'll consider it.
And would they go to city council for that, Kathy or Robin, if there is a hardship on something
Well, it
like
would go
that?
to probably
You
Board of
go to
Zoning.
variance, BZA.
They would go to BZA?
Yeah.
Okay, because I was thinking on a massive zoning or something like that, it wouldn't, so, okay, man, that's kind of, okay.
Cause it's not a change in code, zoning code. Well, so we're not, but we can't make a motion or anything yet.
No, because we haven't
need
even
to
got.
work through the language.
Yeah, let's get working through the language, because I'm having an issue, I'm not reading that right, so.
So which part are you having a hard time?
Well, the whole lot width and all that.
Well, I mean, if we just make it that any lot that fronts it has to be 3 acres, doesn't take a lot of this out. I mean, when you start talking about that kind of thing.
As far as everything is a minimum, 3 acres.
Right, doesn't it take a lot of this out then? Because they're gonna lay it out as the best they can aesthetically, so the frontages don't make as much difference. And you're not worried about them trying to put something in somewhere that might be ugly to get maximized.
Well, if I'm reading this correctly, what it's saying is though that when you do have a 3 acre minimum lot, here are some minimum standards by which you have to comply.
Because you don't want to
So you
have
can't-
any willy-nilly if you
Right.
had a full, like, frontage that you're supposed to have, or them start dividing it up.
Right.
Right.
So you have to
You're
have
just-
some minimum standards, so we can't toss everything here. But of course, I'd rather have it be simpler, because then there isn't any room for interpretation. But what staff has given us here are some minimum standards by which we would need to live. And I'm not, the expert to be able to judge that. If, in this particular case where staff is suggesting that the road frontage needs, or each proposed lot shall have at least 100 feet of road frontage, that's a minimum standard with a 3 acre lot behind it. So, and if it has to have 200 feet of lot width at the building line, that's probably a standard that the staff's measured and is reasonable for us to accept. Again, with understanding that it's a 3 acre lot minimum, it could be more.
And that's what it is existing now.
Yeah, so.
That makes sense.
we can probably endorse that language because these are minimums, right? That's the way you wrote it, is a minimum standard. So.
Both A and B.
Yes, for A and B. Then I think Robin's point highlighted in 3 in yellow makes our point, again, and we can read it and measure it. With a parcel at the time of the adoption of this ordinance is frontage on both a paved road and unpaved road, regardless of the width of the gravel road frontage. So that takes into some consideration some of the ones you're taking exception with. If the lot frontage of the gravel road does not meet the minimum requirements of those said lots shall provide 35 feet of road frontage and at least 100 feet of lot width at the building line. So I guess my only question about that, Robin, is I don't know that we saw an example of it or not. So maybe the school property is the no, it's not. It's the goofy one off of
Hickory Flat.
Yeah, what was it? Clarity
Clarity and Hickory Flat.
Okay,
yeah,
so that lot is not.
But it did have 30. What was interesting when I
36
measured, it
feet.
had at
It had
least
it?
35 feet.
Yeah.
They can't get a fire truck.
Well, but for the sake of the argument, let's say it had 28.
Right.
You would still, they couldn't meet the minimum because it's not there. So that would be, it would have to be allowed. Just like some of these that are on gravel roads that are less than 3 acres, we can't make a 2.5 acre lot a 3 acre lot. It's not there to be done. If there's not 35 feet of width to provide that, you can't make it if it's only 28 feet wide. So it'd have to be an exception.
Right.
So
I
with
mean,
your stated minimum, we could still abide by your stated minimum, knowing that there may be an anomaly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think. I mean, we could review through all these lots, but I mean, you know.
But Clarity is probably the best
Yeah.
example of it, and if it was 35 feet, great, we're good.
Right.
Right? So that means we can probably accept 3, the way Robin's written it. So now we're on A. Each proposed lot should provide at least 100 feet of frontage, the minimum dimension of which shall be maintained to the building line of the lot. I'm not sure I
So
understand
it's
that one.
basically just reiterating. I mean, I could have taken that out, but I wanted to make it clear that if you did meet the normal 3 acre requirements, you'd still have to do that.
Okay.
So.
Another minimum threshold then. So then you're on B. Each proposed lot shall provide at least 200 feet of lot
Which is
width
the
at the
same.
building line, which is the same as above.
Same.
So you're stating it again. So that part, I think
That reads okay.
I can be okay with. Then but we're not done, obviously, because you have to get into the definitions.
And is that a different,
Is that part of that?
different item, is that different agenda
Yeah, it's a
item?
different text. It's the different
Oh, different reading?
That's
It's RC 6, but we can talk about it, and you know,
Well, we
you'll
can
have
go
to
ahead,
just
well,
vote on it.
let's go ahead and vote on, I think we probably need to vote on this first, right? Because
No.
would that determine which way the vote goes to?
It doesn't.
It wouldn't, okay,
No.
then yeah, then we can talk about it.
I mean, you'll just have to vote on them separately, each
Right.
item, but it might be constructive to speak about all 3 of them
Okay.
and make sure we're
That's
all.
cool.
Yeah. Okay, so let's put that aside for a moment, thinking that we're probably okay with page 1 of 2, and there's nothing for us to consider on page 2.
Right.
Okay.
Was
I
there,
just had
I
this,
want to get a consensus on that. Is everybody okay with the 3 acre minimum, just period, end of sentence?
Yes.
Fred?
Yeah.
Can we clarify what happens if somebody wanted to get a rezone? Do they come in front of us or they go in front of?
Well,
Board of
they can
Zoning.
get a no, they can always come before us to get a rezoning.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean,
So it's not a rezoning.
I mean, they could go
it's
put
a
apartments
variant,
up there.
It's a Board of.
Zoning appeals.
Zoning.
Board of Zoning Appeals would be like a hardship. Like, for example, that Clarity Road would probably be one that would more than likely be coming up. I mean, yeah.
And in some ordinance somewhere that the lots less than 3 acres, they're all grandfathered, so that's spelled out somewhere? Or do we need to spell that out?
yeah.
Do we need to spell that out?
We don't need to spell it out. Aren't they automatically grandfathered in?
So it's automatic, we don't,
Oh,
we
yes,
don't have to
yes,
address it?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
have to do that.
Okay.
So now are we, I don't want to get off. So if you have, well, no, I guess you can't subdivide it, right? So if you have 5 acres, it's not, okay, never mind, I'm good. Let's go.
If you have 5 acres, you can't subdivide.
You'd
So
stay at
3 and
5.
2, or 4 and 1. Has to stay 5, which is kind of the point of this.
Okay, got it. Okay, cool. All right. All right. Where are we on, section 9, or
We're on,
definition? whatever?
definitions, page
Okay.
1 of 1.
All right.
101,
Yeah.
gravel road? Is that the start?
Yep.
Yep.
So, Mr. Fernandez made a good point. It was, it's one that caught my attention too. On the gravel roads, I'm talking about the definition, it may have a paved extension. Doesn't say for what reason, doesn't have a maximum length, doesn't explain under what circumstances. It just says you can have a paved extension. So, you know, if I've got up on a gravel road and it's a quarter acre or a quarter mile long, and I want to pave 90% of it, this potentially says you can do that.
Can we, by defining, this was brought up last meeting too, just, if we just say Brittle Road is a gravel road, does that help solve some of these things? If we enter these 20 roads or whatever it is, say these
Well, it
23
doesn't-
roads are
it-
the
it-
gravel roads, it doesn't
I
matter
mean, we
whether
could
your
put
part is
that
paved
into
or not,
the
it's gravel road, it's
definition.
gravel road.
We'd list out all the,
We definitely want a list of the roads
Okay.
that we consider gravel roads.
Does that make sense?
In the mix.
Because that way it doesn't matter
Right.
if, oh man, this part in front of me was paved because I'm not, it'd be like, okay, Brittle Road is, or
Right.
Clarity Road is gravel, it's gravel, it's gravel, doesn't
Right.
matter. If you're in front of a speed bump.
But
they
there
got
was the
paved,
reverse
so-
argument that was just recently made, because there was a section that was paved coming off of a more, a paved road, and I don't remember what road it was.
Wood.
But it was Wood off of Birmingham Highway. So Birmingham Highway was paved, and there was a paved section of.
Highway was paved?
Birmingham,
Part of Wood Road.
Birmingham Highway is paved,
There's a part of Wood.
obviously.
Gotcha.
There was a section of Wood Road coming off of Birmingham Highway that was paved, which is, I don't know why it was paved, but in my mind, that's okay for a certain number of feet, because you want to have dust and gravel and whatever abatement. That makes sense.
Oh, that's what I was saying, you just defined Wood Road as a gravel road. So if they have to pave for, the bridge washes out and you gotta pave 80 feet in front of on either side of it, you're not gonna have some guy coming in and saying, well, no, this is paved here, because it meets the.
Right.
So you just say, Wood Road is a gravel road, is a gravel road.
Yeah.
Yeah, use these definitions, but in addition to, here are the roads that are gravel. It doesn't matter if the
Right.
part in front of your property is paved or not, it's a gravel road.
And I can completely support that, but I also want to go on the other end of that and say, if you're going to pave something, you can't pave any more than X number of feet before consideration has to be given to what you're paving and why.
but what, I mean, I think there's a process that you have to go through. I mean,
From a city paving it
yes,
all, or
yeah, I
from
mean, there's a
private
process
person?
through
Either one.
Public Works, if you were, I mean,
Private person can't, they're public roads. I mean,
Yeah,
private
if
person
it's
can't
pu-
just go on there.
Right,
and pave.
good point. So a private
Yeah.
person can't pave their section in front of their house
Right, you
on
can't just
what's
do that.
considered a
So
public
it-
road.
So,
But, I'm totally okay with the dust and gravel
Yeah.
abatement part of that. But also, so somebody makes an appeal, well, gee, I'd kind of like to have that in front of my house, and it's only 30 more feet beyond what you've currently paved. Nope, can't do it. I think we should limit it to whatever makes sense, and that's probably a number that we can get from
well,
Carter.
I think that, yeah,
or-
and I think
50
that's
feet
gonna
or
be
30
through a
feet.
different
Yeah.
process, not through the
30
definition.
feet, 20 feet.
I think,
But it's-
15, 20 feet.
I'd say revert to Carter, whatever.
Yeah,
Carter.
I don't wanna start getting into that with the definition. I
Yeah.
think it's an issue of the procedure to be able to change a gravel road into a, which I don't,
In some section of it,
right,
paved.
we're looking at apples and oranges as far as converting it, because,
So what's the purpose of that red line area being in there? Why was that, why are we being asked to contemplate and may have a paved extension?
Because some gravel
because they
roads
currently have one.
have a paved extension, and
Yeah.
so we're trying to define it all as a gravel road.
But I guess if we list
Yeah.
and this is prior to listing every single gravel road, so I guess one could say you could get rid of that portion if you say, in its entirety, that every road listed, those 20-some roads are gravel roads, and then that's a gravel road, and then we don't have to talk about an extension or not. Does that make sense? Because before we weren't listing out every single road. Whether, like on Wood Road, there's portions that have the pavement, as well as I think it was Christopher's Run has some pavement. So if we just call them gravel roads, their gravel road is a gravel road, whether there's an extension on it or not. And then we could get rid of
Yeah.
that portion.
I
Well, I
understand.
don't know how we would know, I mean, we're all pretty smart guys up here, I don't know how we would ever define what the city could or couldn't do. You know, I mean, if it washes out or something, how would we
No, yeah,
No.
that I'm totally
I think
okay
it's just
with.
more that little
What
section
I'm-
to pull out and onto
Right.
a 35-mile-an-hour road that you're not.
I'm trying to think of the exception, like, okay, now I'm a developer, and, I come in, and I wanna build a gravel road subdivision on estate lots. Could I ever say, well, gee, the first 10 lots are gonna be gravel road for the aesthetics of that, but everything behind that can be paved? That's an extension of my gravel road, and it's paved for the other 10 lots I'm building back
But
there.
it doesn't matter in a sense, because once he's gravel, it's all 3-acre lots, so even if he did 100 feet of gravel and 1,000 feet of paved, he's just made himself a 3-acre lot minimum, right?
Right, I'm okay with
that-
what that does to it. What I don't wanna have is the reverse, where it's gravel today, and somebody
But you could,
has the
that's what I'm saying,
flexibility
if
to
you
then
define
pave
it
it.
today, and said no matter what.
Well,
these
no, I'm
roads
talking
are
about
gravel
future
roads.
development. I'm talking about one of the 60-acre lots or whatever that's
But
out there.
wouldn't that be part of the zone? I mean, if you were.
They'd have to
you-
apply
You don't
to
get final
pave
plat
it.
if you paved it. If you said it was gravel and then you go and pave it,
Right.
Kathy
Do
doesn't
it.
give them a final plat and they gotta tear it all out.
If those protections are there, I'm okay with that.
Right.
Well, I think
Okay.
what, as Kathy's, or Robin said, what she's trying to do was to say, and may have it, just explaining that it's a gravel road, even though it may have a paved extension, it is a gravel road. I mean,
That's
I
what I'm
see
saying.
what
If we
she was
just define
trying to.
them, It seems like that covers a whole lot of these what ifs, cause you're saying,
Yep.
whatever, the Clarity Road is gravel, no matter what happens. to it, it's a
Exactly,
gravel road.
right, it's a gravel road,
No,
period.
I actually like that. No, I like putting that in.
I
Then
do
we can
too.
put, may have a paved extension, and Carter can figure out no more than so many feet, and then Carter can kind of fill in that number. That's it.
That's where I was
But,
going with it.
but I see where Paul's coming from as how a developer could read other than what we're saying into that. Because he could come back and say, well, you say I may have a paved extension.
Well, we just have to put a number.
Well, I think we were just trying to cover our bases based on those circumstances on Wood and Christopher's Run, that we don't, we've heard from the public, okay, in the future, we don't want them to be able to have 1-acre lots because they're in a paved area.
Correct, yeah.
So I think it just solves it if we just list the number of gravel roads, or list the names of the gravel roads, and these are gravel roads no matter whether there's
Any sections that
some
are paved or
hard
not.
surface on it or not.
So you just
As
drop
long as
that-
it doesn't create an entitlement the other way, with the developers saying, okay, I'm gonna comply with your gravel road requirements, but you've got some examples where there's some paved sections, so for whatever reason, I'm gonna have some paved sections too.
But he can't.
But they're
I mean, he
public
can't-
roads, he
he
can't
can't
be
pave
like
it.
saying, I'm
But-
gonna change 372
No, but
to a
he's,
gravel road.
I'm talking
'cause I
about a
feel like-
development where he's putting in the roads.
Like the internal, you're talking about internal roads of the subdivision?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not turned over to the city at this point. It's an internal, and he's gonna develop it. It's a long shot.
I know.
Yeah, I don't think, first of all, yeah.
But we
I
also
think
had a long shot when we were being asked to consider 1-acre lots
Right.
But
off
still,
of, Wood Road.
Nobody's,
so are you saying the internal? Are we talking about the internal roads should be paved or unpaved?
a road that doesn't exist, I think it's harder to find something that's not.
As long as they have the 3-acre minimums.
I would think the internal roads are paved, right?
Yeah. No, I'm talking about and we talked to Scott about it, about the possibility of that one lot, where he's talking about the larger estate lots, where he is willing to build a gravel road subdivision.
Correct.
And he's bumping into other parameters
Correct,
that
correct.
are an issue.
Yes, correct.
So
I think we've loosened those restrictions as far as the city can, like, if you want to have a private gravel road, then have at it.
And there actually is one, it's Providence Way is a private gravel road.
But Paul, you're
What's a
saying
private
the
road?
opposite.
But it's
Aren't you
private,
saying-
so we can't, we
Right,
can't,
yeah, you can't
we have no
dictate
jurisdiction
anything
over
of
that.
it, right. Cause we don't
But you're
own any
saying
of the right of way.
he could
What you
choose to pay that
saying,
any
the
day.
opposite,
Yeah,
that-
right.
yeah, what you're saying is, you got gravel, but internally, he paved it.
Right, because he's saying for whatever reason, I
Yeah.
wanna pave this section. And I'm
Right.
saying, if it's a 3-acre minimum and it's off of a gravel road, it has to stay gravel
It's
road.
gravel.
Whether he's developing it as a gravel road or not developing it as a gravel. He can develop a 3-acre minimum estate lot neighborhood if it's not off of a gravel road.
Right, you could do large, just
And
like
you could do a large.
River's Edge.
Right, so you've got larger estate lots, there's no gravel road involved, it's all paved.
Right.
But if he came in with the idea to, I don't know, it's too
So
complicated,
don't give
probably,
him a
probably
final
never gonna
plat.
happen.
If he
No,
doesn't
I
do anything on the
think-
plan,
I
you
hear
don't give him
exactly
a
what
final
you're
plat.
saying.
I mean, it's, nobody's gonna come in and just willy-nilly change the plans and be like, oh, I put in, my plans say I'm putting in a cul-de-sac here, but I'm building a highway, you know,
Yeah.
the city just, in my opinion, wouldn't give him a final plat if he paved it, and he said it was gonna be gravel.
Yeah.
It'd be the same if it was vice versa, he said he was gonna
I'm willing to back
paved,
off
and
of
then
that.
he said he gravel, you know.
So I think, to Robin's original suggestion, I don't,
Just,
even with the roads being defined, I don't have a problem with this staying in there.
Yeah.
Where I can take a breath is I don't have to go the path I was gonna go down, where it was gonna require that we state that there's a maximum length and under what circumstances it would be allowed.
right.
This is basically saying it's synonymous with gravel road, period. So I'm sorry I took you guys along a long path to get there.
Securities.
But
I still think we should have some type of, and may have a paved extension up to a certain amount of feet if it abuts a paved road. That way, you know, if you're trying to get out to that 35 mile an hour traffic, you're not. So
Right.
that's the only thing I think we should.
Isn't that a city thing? I mean,
Can you
that's a
s-
safety thing that.
How about this? How about
Who
this,
else
Mark?
is gonna do it?
Mark, how about this? How about if you have, it may have a paved extension approved by the Public Works Director?
Okay.
Gotta take care of
Yeah.
that.
Just something that,
No,
No,
because
it's
then
too open.
that,
It's too open.
that opens.
So, but I mean,
no, that
let's
opens
just-
the door.
Because then
Private
I'd wanna
developer,
put a
guys,
maximum.
Guys, a private developer's not going to go in and do work on Nick's Road without approval of the city.
Right.
You're not going to go.
Right.
It's
change
true,
a
that's
road
true,
that
it's
doesn't
public, I mean,
belong
it's
to
a
you.
public road.
You can't make
so-
a change to.
That's my whole point.
he
Is
can't add this extension.
Yeah.
No,
So,
you can't.
okay.
'Cause it's the
No,
city's road.
and the
You
city's
can't-
gonna
It's like
choose
them
these.
putting in a street
Yeah,
light.
no,
They
yeah.
can't
I think,
put a
Mark, I think
traffic
you're-
signal there just
Yeah.
because you feel like it.
I agree
you
what
know?
you're saying, but, I mean, it's a public road, it's not like,
Right, and I think your concern is
Yeah.
addressed by the fact that the city will take the responsibility to pave the areas where just what you're talking about would be the case. And we do. And it is the case on Brittle, it is the case on Summit,
Freeman.
it's a case on Wood, I think. So those are ones I go by all the time I can think of. Where I don't know how many feet it is. It's not very many feet. It's probably less than 60 feet.
That should be Public Works to make that
Yeah.
decision
Well,
if
maybe
you
it's-
need it or not.
May have the paved extension with approval of.
No, we're not, because then you're suggesting that it's okay.
It's okay. Yep.
And we're not-
So we're already saying it is, and may have it.
No, what we're
No.
saying here is
That's
that
already
if
there.
it's there, it's
This isn't saying
synonymous.
you need to put it in, Mark. That's saying that's already there.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not allowing anybody to put it in.
And it's
just
synonymous
saying-
with Wood.
Yes,
The reason that's
yes.
in there is
I
so
heard
that
you.
somebody, when you're looking at Wood Road, for example, somebody doesn't say, well, this isn't a gravel road because it's got a paved extension.
Yeah.
Is why that's in there.
Yeah,
It's not-
that's why it's in
It's not so you can put one in there, it's just so some guy's like, well, man, that's not a gravel road. You can see the paved extension.
That's right. And that's exactly the
That's
argument that
what
was
happened.
used.
Yeah.
That's why I have to put it in there.
I'm fine with the way it reads.
All right.
Yeah. Yep. I am now that we've debated it.
All right, so we good with that page?
No, we're
No,
still
we
to go
didn't talk about
unpaved road
second.
means,
Oh,
public unpaved roads.
all this is,
I mean, you might wanna take out, since we're gonna list the roads, we could take out that portion that says, and is reflected in the ownership and surface type map.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Where it's defined as the following roads.
yeah, I agree with, because, yeah, where's the ownership service type? map?
What was with your other packet?
Oh, okay.
So why not leave it in? It's just one more definitive way of saying these are unpaved roads.
And then Paul, just add another sentence at the
Nations.
end that says, and here are the.
In addition, yeah, in addition to these, yeah.
Yeah. I'm okay with that staying. For
But
that
just
reason.
add-
But it has
more
to,
sentence to that.
yeah, it has to have the definite, it has to have the list.
List of roads.
Can you do that, Robin?
And to say with the list of, I mean,
With the list.
okay.
See attached list.
Well, it's with synonymous with
Okay.
a attached list of.
Because if you've got a chance to go reference something, why not take advantage of the map? It's there, it's fine.
Well, you're double defined. I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you're better off with more definition than less,
Than less,
right?
yeah.
So-
Okay,
Okay. I guess we got,
so
one
now we
more.
have the
The
chapter
last one.
50 portion. Yeah.
Well, that's separate, isn't it? 6416, yeah.
that's the same as the,
First one.
yeah.
Reiterating.
So I was just trying to make it consistent. I mean,
Yeah.
it's worded a little differently, it's in general, but I'm just trying to get the same definition. Same.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
You guys good with that?
That's
Yep.
okay.
So
Okay, so now you can just.
we're
go to
gonna
vote.
open up with a motion for RZ 16-07. Going once, going twice.
Can you wait till I get to my,
Oh.
cover, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm ready now. I'm sorry. To get to my menu here. So this is RZ 1607.
Correct.
Okay.
I move we accept RZ 16-07, consideration to amend AG1 agricultural district regarding paved and unpaved roads in chapter 64, Article 6, Division 2, and Section 64-416 development standards per staff's definition.
A recommendation.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
All right, a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay. RZ 1608. Open for motion? Yep.
I move we accept staff's recommendation for RZ 16-08, consideration to amend the definitions regarding paved and unpaved roads in Chapter 64, Article 1, in Section 64-1 definitions to read as staff has recommended, including the list of unpaved roads, or gravel roads, I'm sorry, unpaved and gravel roads.
I'll second that.
All right, a motion, a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay. And the last Chapter 50 amendment.
Yes, I move that we accept Chapter 50, Article 3, Division 1, Section 50-71, compliance with city procedures and guidelines required for paved and unpaved roads as staff has recommended to, however, to include the list of gravel and unpaved roads.
I'm not sure if we need to include a lit, that's
don't
not
need
a
it there?
definition, it's just
Okay. Then,
the requirements.
then without the list.
Second.
All right, any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay. Anything else, Robin? Kathy? We gotta do our Christmas dinner.
One question.
All right, go, shoot.
Is there any update on Hopewell Stockade? The
Oh, yeah, the fence, Mr. Bates.
Oh, in terms of what? You mean the, text amendment that's going through on the fence?
Well, his fence is non-compliant, right?
The, well, the original fence is in compliance now, the opaque fence. And then he, has added on to it, and that is not in compliance. And so we have had conversations with him, and he will be going before the BZA, for that. And he does, I think he has a very, adequate hardship, on that.
I thought the opaque the first part was not compliant.
It was not, and it went to BZA, and
Oh.
they have granted it, yeah.
Okay.
But they asked him to,
Well, so that's why we have to be very definitive about some of this stuff. Because when it goes to the BZA.
Remember Samit in there.
A lot of stuff happens. Stuff.
Been there, right?
Happens.
That's right.
Been there.
Yeah.
so in any event, he has stained it in conformance with the requirements of the variance, and he also has put the landscaping in, so that is totally
Oh, I
compliant.
haven't seen the landscape.
However, he has added now additional floorboard fence, but the height is not within the regulations. So we have had a discussion with him, and we have advised him that he needs to apply for variance in order to move that forward. So
Okay.
he will be doing that.
Thank you. And my, on the same topic about the, Carter was aware of it, the fence or the screen that was constructed around the utility boxes on Bethany. Is there any update on that?
So I think they're out of the right of way, and we still need to work on, I haven't gone by there lately, but we can check with code enforcement to see if we can take down the remainder of it, because it's out of compliance.
Yeah. Okay. And the last one, did you guys investigate the one on Freemanville, where they built, they redid their pasture with floorboard new fence, and the fronting Freemanville is floorboard. The area to the south is floorboard.
What
But
part
there-
of Freemanville?
It's right. It's
Just south of
just-
White Columns.
Yeah,
right?
just south of White Columns, and the large estate property that's for sale. What's the next property? There's a small, like a pale green home that's got and there's a home that's deeper behind that.
Okay,
So
I
there's a
have to look
gate,
at it.
and along that it's the north boundary of that property. It's only got the posts and a top board, and it's, it
Oh,
can be
that's
viewed,
right, okay.
can be viewed from the street, so it
Okay.
needs to be
Okay, well,
floorboard.
All right,
Have-
so it's not meeting the fencing.
Correct.
All right, we'll check it out.
Thank you.
Make sure when you visit these people, tell them who's saying that.
The planning commission. Actually, Foster's got with them.
Yeah, hey, you know what, I'll go.
All right. We gotta do our Christmas dinner,
Well, shoot, now the 14th's available.
That's what I was saying. 14th sound good at Milton's, usual,
Sounds
time,
good.
6 o'clock.
It's always a nice event.
Okay, so 14th at 6
We'll have to advertise.
For our
it.
newest
adver-
members, we,
See who can
planning
drink the
commission
most.
takes the staff to dinner.
Samit, you have
Paul
to-
can drive from our neighborhood.
No, you're driving.
Rookie has
You
to
can
drive?
Yeah, rookie has to drive.
You guys can like rent the fur bus, and I'll pick you up and
Yeah.
go.
All right, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. See you on the
That's good.
Yeah.
I told my
That's at
husband
6
10 or
o'clock on
11.
the 14th?
Have faith.
I can never
Good man,
tell.
I'm good. That's what I told my wife. I was like, it's gonna be late. Yep.
I'm sorry, I
That's
was
good.
looking at my clock. Who made the motion for adjournment?
Fred made
Fred.
the motion, Mark seconded it.
I should just, you guys should just always do it, and then I will. Okay, well, that was progressive.
Fred, you not putting any money in the account?
If I hadn't checked the Monday, I'd have said the two.
Daddy warm up, Daddy warm up.
Yeah, right.
You're saying it never changes, huh, Fred?
Yep. Amen.
big turnout, don't you, on Thanksgiving? Yeah.
Yeah. We're the reverse. We're the guests. You're the guests? Yeah, we're, I have this very benevolent brother-in-law and sister-in-law.
Oh, that's nice.
Who,
Like my mother-in-law, she always does it.
well, this, no, wait till you hear this. Oh. So, there's about 25 of us.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Only 5 of them are the family. But, I'll tell that part at the end. So, the other 20 of us, they fly us in. You're kidding? And they put most of us up in the main house, which will accommodate a lot of people. And for those of us who don't fit in the main house, this is on the beach in San Antonio.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh,
And
what a tough life,
I know,
Paul.
this is one of my few sort of true perks in my life. My brother-in-law, my sister-in-law. And they pay for our transportation from the airport.
This is your wife's family.
My wife's family. My wife's brother is married to one of the top women in Goldman Sachs. Yeah. They own this multi-million-dollar home on the beach in San Antonio.
Okay.
Fly out and literally, like, for those of us who don't fit in the house,
They rent.
there's
There's
cottages about 300 yards away, and they're renting 4 or 5 cottages for the other time.
And you fly down.
Yeah, they pay for all the food, they pay for all the hotels. 2 years ago, it was my brother-in-law's birthday, and they had a professional photographer come in. They took pictures of all the families, these were Christmas cards or whatever, and they set up a day for us to
Can I
go
be adopted
to the
by you?
tennis club. They had, they signed up, they had 2 pros. They spent 2 hours with them.
Yeah.
My 36 Bud Light for my sister and her son-in-law a bottle of Jim Beam. And my brother drinks Windsor, and that's what I drink, so I mean, you know.
So yeah,
And then they split
this
off.
includes, before it included, my kids and boyfriends and girlfriends.
Oh, wow.
But now they're married.
Married, so they're
So
legit, yeah.
now it's all wives and one fiance. But now it includes my granddaughter.
Yeah.
So they're flying in my granddaughter. At some point we have to cut it off. It's okay.
Yeah.
A little more, we
Yeah.
can't do
Or
it.
you could have to get drunk.
I know.
Sounds
Go from
sweet.
place to
And
place.
we even like this year, Kath wrote him a long email saying,
Please let us
participate.
participate.
Let each family take a night while we're there.
Right,
And each of us do
Provide dinner, yeah.
dinner. They said, nope. Do what you guys have done and relax, enjoy. So, fabulous.
So I have you mentioned about your son, and how did his speech go?
Oh, thank you for remembering. It went really well. I was very proud father.
So what's your opinion on all the? I thought that was interesting what his job is for
Yeah.
the refugees and all the crap that gets pushed around. How people, not knowing anything, I'm like, these people who come in, surely they don't just walk in. I'm sure there's so much paperwork and
Well,
vetting.
You're absolutely right. So, my son works for World Relief.
Right.
And they're the only non-profit Christian organization that's sanctioned by the government. They actually can receive government money even though they're a Christian-based organization. Because they work with all the churches around the country. And they help place the vetted legal refugees coming in the U.S. So last year, I think there was officially like 70,000 or 80,000 refugees that came in. Well, I sat at dinner between 2 families from Syria. So this is all the people that were
Right.
right.
The propaganda.